When I was 20 years old, I was making $13 an hour wrapping sandwiches on a college bar street. Fast forward 6 months later, and I was the #1 high ticket closer on every offer that I worked for, making over 20K a month in commissions. I've personally closed over 7 figures in high ticket sales. I've been a setter, I've been a closer, I've been a sales manager, and I've helped over 100 guys get into this space as well. Sales is the best skill that you can learn, especially if you're just starting out. It's literally the foundation of any and all business, and it's recession proof. And once you master the skill, there's literally going to be nothing holding you back from making money online anymore. Nobody can take this away from you. The online market is aggressively growing right now in 2026, and the need for good sales reps is massive. I'm gonna go through everything: sales scripts, frameworks, objection handling, psychology, live setting calls, live closing calls, literally everything that you need to get started with high ticket sales. So I promise you that if you watch this entire video, you're going to know the exact A to Z process on how to become a top earning high ticket closer, even if you don't have any prior experience, in less than 90 days, making potentially 10 to 20K a month. And I'm gonna be exposing why high ticket sales is the best opportunity right now, which I'll be covering later in this video. So what exactly is high ticket sales? How does it work, and how can I get into it? Well, let's dive into it. So you've probably seen all of these influencers online who are selling some sort of service, product, mentorship course, whatever it may be, and they need you as a high ticket sales rep to sell that product for them. And these businesses have way more leads than they can even handle, and they're desperate for skilled people who are in high ticket sales. When you get into high ticket sales, there's really 2 roles in a sales team. First things first is the setter. So the setter is essentially the person who is setting the appointments. They're getting these people on sales calls so that way they can eventually get closed and everybody gets paid. So the setter is going to take anywhere from around 5 to 8% commission, and you can either be a DM setter or you can be an appointment setter. Now, a DM setter is simply somebody who's going to be DMing leads on Instagram, and you would just be texting people, hey, like, what's got you wanting to get into this business model, blah, 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 making sure that they're qualified, and then just sending them a Calendly link. And it's just a simple booking link for them to click a few buttons so that way they get on the actual sales call. Now, it's the exact same thing with appointment setting, but this time you're actually calling people via a CRM. And basically, a CRM from a bird's eye view is just a lead sheet. You would basically just call them saying, hey, like, what's got you interested? How can I learn how to do this? And eventually you'll also book them through Calendly. So your job is simply just to ask questions, qualify them, and then book a call with the closer. Now, you're probably wondering, where does the sales call take place? How does it happen? How does that work? Well, that's where the closer comes in. Now, the closer is really the bread and butter of this entire industry. This is really where you're going to start making a lot of money. As a closer, you're going to take anywhere from 10 to 15% commission on the entire deal. And essentially all that you're doing is just hopping on a Zoom meeting or a Google Meet, which is where the sales call is hosted, and you're diagnosing the prospect's problem, you're pitching the offer, and then you're collecting payment after you close the deal. So here's a great illustration for you on how this works specifically. So let's say you have a business owner here, right? And here's a sales funnel. He has a bunch of leads that are trying to buy his service, program, mentorship course, whatever it is. And the business owner himself is way too busy and he has no time to take all these calls. So if he doesn't have the time and the calls aren't happening, he's not going to be making a lot of money. Now, that's where you come in. So now it's you and him and potentially other people taking the sales calls for him. So that way the business as a whole makes more money and you get paid as well. So let's say, for example, you have a business owner. His service is around $5,000. You're selling his service that is $5,000. You are the one who's getting on the sales call, pitching the offer, and then collecting payment. And you're going to get paid 10% for a 40-minute call, which is the equivalent of $500. So just some simple math. If you only close 2 calls a day, that's $1,000 every single day. And if you do that for 30 days, you're making really good money. And I want you to look at this. The global online education e-learning market is going to surpass over $300 billion in global revenue this year, an increase of around 14%. That should really show you how big this industry is. And this number is not going to stop increasing anytime soon. And if you're actually wanting to get on one of these offers and start making money exactly like that, you would simply apply with a quick Loom video. And essentially all a Loom video is just like a 1 to 2 minute elevator pitch on exactly who you are, what you're about, why you'd be a good fit, and what some of your experience looks like. Now, there are 2 ways that you can get on an offer. The first is going to be cold DMing. So DMing people via Instagram, like an offer owner, for example, if he's selling some sort of mentorship. And the second way is by using a job board. So this is a job board that I have for my community. And essentially we just post offers in here every single day. They could be a setting offer. They could be a closing offer. Okay, so now we're going to be getting into the 8-step setter framework. Now, in all of my time being in this industry, this is by far the best framework that I have come up with over the years, and all the different frameworks that I've used and techniques and everything like that. And this 8-step framework makes the prospect feel stupid for saying no to booking a call with you. And this framework is really just designed to guide the prospect from very first interaction, breaking the ice, all the way towards you getting them to book a call with your closer. And every single step will build on the last. It's kind of like a grocery store if you think about it that way. You're not really selling anything as a setter. You're asking the right questions, you're guiding the conversation, you're genuinely helping them, and essentially letting the prospect do all of the hard work by getting them to sell themselves on why they need to take the next step. So first, breaking the ice, essentially just lowering the sales resistance, building as much rapport as you can so that way they're actually engaged. Second, getting their intent. So why are they exactly interested? Why are they wanting to get into this specifically? Why is this the dream vehicle for them to get from point A to point B? Number three, discovery. So learn a bit more about their current situation. So are they working a job? Are they in school? What do their finances kind of look like? What is their background? Number four, building pain. So uncovering problems, making them real, making sure that they understand why they need to solve the problem and why it's an issue. Number five, creating urgency. This is directly correlated with number four. So not only do they now know that they have a problem, but now you need to show them the cost of waiting, doing nothing, and really why they need to solve it now. Six, painting the picture. So really getting them emotionally attached to a better future, getting them to understand that this is what their life is actually going to look like if they start. Number seven, what is preventing them from getting to where they are now to where do they want to be, making them realize that they actually need help, they need guidance. And then, of course, number eight, booking the call, positioning the call as the next obvious step for them. So that way, like I said at the beginning, they're going to feel really stupid for saying no to not getting on that call. And by the time you get to step eight, the call should honestly feel like the most obvious step in the world. So to get into some more detail on step one specifically, this is really one of the most important parts of the call, because if you come off as really salesy at the beginning, or you're immediately trying to sell them something, you're begging them for their time, you're giving them the frame, you're giving them the control, and they're honestly just going to hang up on you. So first impressions set the tone for everything. Whenever you reach out to a prospect, whether you're calling them or you're messaging them, their guard is always going to be up. They're like, who's calling me? And they're thinking like, who's this person? Why are they contacting me? And your job is essentially to immediately lower that resistance. Be super enthusiastic. You want them to feel comfortable. You don't want them to be sold to. You want to be a chameleon and really adapt to their personality. So if somebody's giving you some very enthusiastic energy, you want to mirror that. But if somebody's being more nonchalant, kind of, more on the monotone, softer side, then you kind of want to copy that a little bit and start speaking exactly like them, matching and mirroring their energy. And this is really going to make them feel like it's just a normal conversation, right? This isn't one person trying to sell something to another. It's one person trying to genuinely help and move the needle for the other person and showing them what that's kind of going to look like. So an opener that you could use is, hey, John, I saw that you filled out that quick form about, getting into X business model. Was that kind of like a mistake, or did you mean to do that, right? And then this always works. And I've found that every single time that I say this to somebody, they're always like, oh, no. I meant to fill it out. I was actually looking into this, right? Because you kind of sound confused. You're like, oh, was this like a mistake? And they're immediately going to prove themselves to you on that they're actually interested. They actually meant to do that, giving you complete frame control over the call instantly. So that way it kind of sets the tone for you to be able to say, hey, what got you interested in this? What's got you looking into it? How long? Blah, blah, blah. And essentially setting the entire plan into motion. And it's very disarming. You're immediately giving them an easy out, which ironically is going to make them lean in, right? They're always going to say, no, I actually meant to do that. And now they've confirmed their own interest without you even lifting a single finger. A second one that you could go that's more casual. Hey, John, just reaching out. I saw that you filled out an application wanting to get an X business model. How's the day been going? I'm not a huge fan of this one, but it's very simple and very human. You're not launching into some sort of pitch. You're just being a normal person, starting a normal conversation. And that way you're kind of lowering the tone a little bit. Their guard's not going to be as up. But some key principles, very important. You do not want to sound monotone. You don't want to sound scripted or robotic. Just be natural. Talk like you're talking to another human. Talk like you're talking to your best friend, but obviously don't be immature. Obviously hold frame, be professional, but just keep it natural. That's the most important part of all of this. And of course, mirroring their energy as well. Like I previously mentioned, if they're chill, be chill. If they're excited, match it. So if their guard's still up and you're trying to question them on why they're wanting to get into all this, you're going to be on an uphill battle. You're not even going to get the information that you want. And more likely than not, they're not going to book a call, or they might even just straight up hang up on you. So another big thing is make them laugh. Maybe crack some like stupid joke. If you can get them to laugh, get them to smile, it's really going to kill the tension instantly and make the call so much easier. Then once you've developed that solid foundation, their guard is down, they feel relaxed, they're going to answer your questions. Now you need to understand their why. Why did they fill out the form? Why are they looking into this? However you got their information, you're wanting to find out why they're looking into something like this. What drew them into it, you know? This is really important because their own words are going to become ammunition that you're going to use later in the conversation. So if they give you some valuable information, their goal, their pain, whatever it may be, you can throw that on at the end of a statement. They're going to feel very heard. They'll be like, damn, this guy gets it, right? It's going to hit that much harder for them because it's tailored, it's specific, it's personal. So just a couple opener questions that you could ask to really get the conversation going. Okay, well, what got you looking into X business model? What kind of made you start exploring this recently? How did you come across this in the first place? Why did you want to get into this specifically? Like, what kind of drew you to this model? Things like that, really just opening the prospect up a little bit. And this is important because when the prospect tells you why they're interested, they're already beginning to sell themselves. And that's going to set the motion for the entire framework. You're not selling them on anything. You're not convincing them of anything. You're really just getting them to articulate what they already feel. And the more they talk about the reasons, their problems, and everything like that, the more real it becomes to them and why they actually need to make a change and get started with something like this. So a quick example. Yeah, so I mean, like, what kind of got you looking into this model specifically? Oh, well, I kind of just feel stuck at my job. I want to make more money. I want to escape the 9 to 5. I see all these kids making money online and I want to do the same thing. And you're like, okay, yeah, I totally understand that. I was in your shoes as well. Maybe be a little bit relatable. I mean, how long has that kind of been a feeling for you? Is this more so something that's happened recently in the past couple of months, or have you been wanting to make a change like this for a couple of years now? You notice how you're not pitching, you're more so coming from like a curiosity perspective. You're asking follow-up questions that go deeper. You're peeling back the layers of the onion. You're letting them talk rather than you talking the entire time giving a monologue. And every word that they say is going to give you something to work with later down the line. So it's very important that the prospect is always going to be talking more than you. All you're doing is asking the right questions. Next is really figuring out more about their situation and making sure that they're actually qualified. Now, making sure that a prospect is qualified is really important because it's going to save you a lot of time in case they aren't. If a prospect is broke and they're financially unqualified, you're like 12, 15 minutes into the set, and then at the end they tell you, oh, I don't have any money. You just wasted 15 minutes. You could have used those 15 minutes to book like 2 more appointments of people who are actually financially qualified. So this is where you're really going to learn who you're actually talking to and if this even makes sense. So like, what is their current situation? Are they working? Are they in school? Do they have money? Are they actually serious about this? Or are they more so fence sitters? Are they just window watchers? Are they just more so casuals, right? So discovery isn't just about gathering basic information. It's more so about actually qualifying on whether or not this person is actually somebody that you can genuinely help get them to their goals. So basic areas to cover. So current situation, what are you kind of doing for work right now that's making you want to switch into something like this? How long have you been doing that for? How is that going? What is their kind of satisfaction? Are you kind of happy with where you're at financially? Do you see yourself doing that for long term? And odds are they're probably going to say no to those questions. And you already know that. You already know that they're going to say no. But the importance of asking that question is still there. But it's really important that you ask those questions, even though you know the answer, so that way the prospect can consciously and subconsciously understand that, hey, I'm not happy with this. And that way they're admitting it to you as well, that you can use that ammunition, like I mentioned earlier, later on in the call. Something about their background as well. So have you tried business models before? Have you tried making money online? Why did it not work? Why do you think it's going to be different this time? Why do you think you would actually make it work with this business model in comparison to all the other things that you've tried? That way you're getting that tie down. You're getting them to admit to you, hey, this is different. This time it's actually going to click for me and I'm actually going to make it happen. Or have you invested in the learning coaching before? That's a great question, because if somebody has, odds are they've probably been burned in the past, and you need to make it make sense for them on why this is actually going to be different. And that's very important information, because that could potentially ruin an entire closing call if that never came up, because it's not going to come up until the very end. And the biggest one is financial qualification. This is less about judging them. You're not trying to call them poor or anything like that. You're just trying to understand whether or not they can realistically invest into something like this. Because at the end of the day, you can't help everybody. If somebody has no money, you can't help them. It's not about like you being greedy. Oh, this person doesn't have money, I can't take their money. No, it's like you genuinely cannot help this person because they are not financially qualified to get started with you. If they don't have any money, maybe give them an idea of like how they get started in the future. Give them some sort of game plan. You never just want to burn a lead because they aren't financially qualified. I've had multiple instances where like I'm talking to somebody who's broke. I tell them to go get a job and they come back and they actually pay. I know it's easier said than done, right? But giving them the game plan, giving them some sort of hope or some sense of direction is honestly more beneficial than just cursing somebody out because they're poor. Like, what good does that do you? And additionally, it's not fair to either of you to pretend otherwise, and you don't want to waste your time or theirs. Another important section is building pain. This is really where you're going to start to uncover a lot of the problems that the prospect has, make them feel real, make them actually aware of it. So a couple examples could be like, okay, well, I mean, what kind of made you start looking for something different in comparison to the job you're doing right now? What's kind of the issue with it? What do you feel is like kind of missing right now from your current lifestyle, your current circumstance? You know, if you could change one thing about where you're at, what would it be? You do want to ask surface level pain questions, but you don't want to stop there. A lot of people will mess up because they'll just ask the surface level questions and they'll move on to the next question. Like you're at a doctor's office and the doctor's asking you, how tall are you? How much do you weigh? What medications are you taking? Blah, blah, blah. You're not really expanding on the subject. You're kind of just answering all the questions on your little board, right? You're trying to check all the boxes off. No, you really want to get deep. You want to peel back the layers of the onion, like I previously mentioned. So for instance, if somebody says to you, yeah, I mean, I've been wanting to like quit my 9 to 5 and, you know, get started making money online. Okay, well, why is that the case? Why do you want to quit your 9 to 5? I mean, like you told me you were making pretty good money earlier on. It sounds like a great gig, right? Then they're gonna be like, oh, well, this, that, and the third. They're just giving you even more information on why they need to make a change. That's why it's really important to ask the deeper questions. Is that starting to wear on you? Does that stress you out? How long have you been kind of dealing with that for? What kind of frustrates you the most about your current situation? I'm not a big fan of saying figure this out on your own because it's kind of like you're pressuring them a little bit. I would frame it a little bit different by saying more so something like, what's kind of like the most frustrating part about your current circumstance? Because I mean, obviously, like we're trying to make money online. We're trying to do something different, right? What's kind of the issue here? Emotional expansion is also really important, like getting them to deeply emotionally feel their problems so that way they know that they actually need to solve them. How does that affect their day-to-day? What does that make them feel like? Stressing them out? Is that something that they want to keep dealing with? And I mentioned therapist approach earlier, very important. You want to really think of yourself less like a salesperson and more like a therapist. Your goal is to help them acknowledge and understand what they already know deep down that hasn't been brought up to the surface level. Immediately after building pain, you want to create some sort of urgency. Now, urgency kind of coincides directly with pain. Pain without urgency means absolutely nothing. So some examples of this will be like, okay, well, what if nothing changes this year? Where do you think you would be in 12 months if you kept going at it alone? Would you be okay staying in the same spot next year? How important is this for you to start seeing results soon? And the last one I want to expand on, because I like to use this in the form of what I call a double down question. So, John, why is this something that you're wanting to do right now? I mean, realistically, you could wait another 6 months if you really wanted to. You're giving them the easy way out, and they're never going to take it, even though our brains are biologically wired to always choose the comfortable path. You're laying it out for them on a silver platter, but they're never going to take it because it's not truly what they want, and they're always going to choose the hard way. And by far, the most powerful urgency tool is simply highlighting the cost of them doing nothing and not making a change. A lot of people nowadays are so hyper-focused on the cost of actually taking action instead of how expensive it is to stay where they are year after year after year. Every month, every year that they wait is a month and a year of the same income, the same frustration, and the same exact feeling of being stuck and not actually making a change to get them to where they want to be. So you really need to help them see that waiting has a huge price, if not a greater price too. Now they know they have a problem, they need to solve it now. All you really need to do is just paint the picture for them on what it would look like if they actually solved the problem and what their life would look like at the end of it. So really getting them to emotionally attach to that better future that they genuinely want. Now that they feel the weight of where they're at, flip it. Help them see where they actually could be. Get them to describe their ideal life, their goals, their why, what success actually looks like for them. And again, the more specific, the better. You really, really, really want them to feel it emotionally. So the more detail that they're giving you, the more information that they're giving you, they're really going to feel that pull towards actually wanting to get to that point and not just thinking about it logically. So just some basic goal setting questions. Ideally, where would you like to be financially? Maybe in the next 6 months. What kind of income would make a real difference for you in your life and where you're wanting to be? What are you ultimately working toward? What's the why for you? What's the deeper reason or deepest reason as to why you're wanting to get into something like this? Asking a lot of these questions is really going to get them to open up to you on the deep emotional reasoning and deep emotional feelings that they have towards becoming successful. Like, I want to retire my parents. I want to set a good example for my siblings. I want to do X, Y, and Z, something that is genuinely so valuable to them. And that is the golden ticket, the golden reason why they're wanting to get into something like this. And that's the ammunition that you need to get them over the edge, to actually get them to make that change. You could even ask them lifestyle questions. So like, what would that income align to do? This is more of like a follow-up question. So like, what kind of money are you wanting to make? Okay, I mean, like, why did you pick that number specifically? I mean, like, what would that kind of allow you to do? What would the ideal day look like if you were making that amount of money? More freedom, travel, time back with family, whatever levers that you can pull them 100%. And again, like I said, find the why. Why is this so important to you? What would changing this actually mean for you? And how would your life look different? What would be different about it? And this step is really important because a lot of people won't just straight up buy logically. A lot of people act on emotions. They'll always buy in emotionally and then they'll always justify logically. If you can get them to genuinely feel emotionally what their life would look like on the other side, if they were actually over there, getting them to see the vision, they're already half committed. Then all you have to do is just make it make sense because the vision becomes the motivation. And one of the most important things that you need to do that a lot of people miss whenever they're trying to set appointments is creating a gap, because without the gap, they're never really going to need to make the change. If there isn't a gap, you're never going to be able to make them realize that they need help to get there, because they're just going to, oh, I'll go do it on my own. I'll see what I can do. And that motivation is going to fade. They don't have anybody helping them. They're probably going to quit and never actually get to their goals. And at this point, the prospect knows their problem. They feel the urgency and they can see where they want to go, but there's an obvious gap. They're here, they want to be there, they're at point A, they want to go to point B, and they do not have a way to bridge it on your own. And that gap that you're creating right now is exactly where the offer, the book call, or whatever it is that they're actually wanting to get into lives. So a gap question that I love to ask is, okay, John, so you told me that you're here, you're at point A, you have all these problems, blah, 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 X problem, X pain, and you're wanting to get to, these goals, X lifestyle, retire parents, blah, blah, blah. Is that correct? Okay, cool. So from where you're at right now and where you want to be, what do you feel is stopping you from actually getting there? Or some more basic ones, what do you feel is currently stopping you from actually getting to those goals? What has been the biggest obstacle from getting you from point A to point B? What do you feel that you're missing right now to actually get you to that point, to get you to those goals, to get you to XYZ thing that you previously mentioned to me? Do you think that if you had the right guidance, the right roadmap, how far would you go? How much would it help? The gap is what is going to make the call feel necessary and the next best thing for them to do. Because without it, the call is just a simple another conversation that they're going to have to get on. They got to do this, they got to do that. The call is going to become the solution when you create the gap. It's going to make them actually want to get on the call. It's going to incentivize them to actually show up, learn, and actually invest in themselves to get them to where they want to be. Because that call is literally the bridge between their current reality and the life that they just now described to you. That's why this framework flows the way it does, is because each step builds on the last. By the time you reach this point, booking the call is literally going to be the obvious next step for them, and the prospect is going to sound dumb, like I mentioned, for saying no to you not getting on the call. Speaking of calls, obviously you want to get them on a call, so you got to book them, right? If you've done everything right up until this point, getting them on a call should feel effortless. The prospect should basically be thinking, yeah, of course, I should get on this call. I need to get on this call. I have to get on this call. You're not really asking them to buy anything. You're not selling them anything. You're simply positioning the call as a logical next step for the prospect based on everything that they kind of just told you after the lay of the land that they just gave you. So a pitch that I really love using, and I say it pretty much the same way every single time, is, okay, John, so based on everything that you've kind of shared with me, honestly, I feel the next best step for you is to hop on a quick call with our head coach, Jack. He's been doing X business model for a very long time. He's helped a lot of people get into this space. And essentially on the call, he's just going to be going over how he can help you specifically, kind of tailoring a roadmap based on your current circumstances. And worst case scenario, John, you get a ton of free value. How does that sound? And you always want to give a closing statement. So how does that sound? Does that sound fair? Sound cool? Or even just assuming, are you available later today or tomorrow? And even if you wanted to throw in some more additional questions at the end, what kind of made you want to look into this now? Or what are you hoping changes after this call? You don't really have to do that. I don't think that's necessary, because once they book, right? Job's done. But the goal is to make them sound stupid for saying no. And I don't mean any of this in a rude way, but simply in the sense that after everything that I just told you about their problems, their reasoning for why they want to do it now, their goals, why they want to do this specifically, and what they want their life to look like, why would they not get on a free call to just get value and how they could actually move the needle to get from point A to point B? Now, framework aside for a second, something that you really need to understand whenever you're using this is the difference between B2B and B2C. So this framework that I just described to you is built primarily for B2C, which is business to consumer. That essentially means that you're talking to regular people who are interested in the offer or whatever it is that you're specifically selling. And this is going to be the most common type of setting that you do. If you're ever getting into this space and you're brand new, you're probably going to be on a B2C offer. B2B is business to business, which requires a little bit of a different approach. You're talking to legitimate business owners. They already understand the game of sales. You can't just ask them all these dumb questions. They know what you're doing. They understand sales. They know that they're being sold something. So if you try the same emotional approach and try to get them to sell themselves, it's really not going to work. And they don't have time for that. And they're honestly just going to hang up on your ass. B2B are high-level individuals, and you want to take more of a logistical approach for them, because if you can make it make sense for them and it's going to make them money, why would they not do it? But if you're doing B2C, take more of the emotional approach. You want to sell them on the outcome. You want to sell them on the vacation, right? Not the actual steps that it takes to get there and all that jazz. So for B2B, just a quick opener example that you could use if you were selling for some sort of AI agency that was selling to local business. You could say something like, hey, is this John with HVAC business? Yeah, I was actually trying to look you guys up online to inquire about your services to see if you're taking on more clients, but I couldn't seem to find your website. Do you guys have one? And obviously they don't have a website. And they'd be like, no, we actually don't have a website. So now you're positioning yourself more as like a potential customer first. Once they confirm that they actually have a need for your service or whatever that gap is that you're trying to fill, then you can pivot into that value that you can provide straight to the point, no fluff. You're not trying to emotionally sell them. You'd be like, yeah, that's kind of why I was calling. I actually put together a quick example of a demo website that's kind of tailored exactly towards your business. Would it be cool if I shot that over to you and we set up a quick call to kind of talking about how we could implement all that? See, it's more straight to the point, it's more logical, it's going to provide value for them, and it's something that they genuinely need. Now, I know all those parts broken up specifically are kind of a lot at one time, so just to give you a quick reference, this is pretty much the full framework at a glance. You can print this, you can take a screenshot of it, whatever you want to do, keep it on your next calls, whatever you want to do in order to help you retain the information. What's up? So in this section of the video, I'm going to be going over a full in-depth live setting call, A to Z, beginning to end, pretty much everything in between. And towards the end of the call, I'm going to be going over a short review on pretty much everything. So make sure you watch to the end and take notes.
Hello?
Yo, is this Ian?
Yeah, it's Ian. Who's this?
Yo, Ian, what's going on, man? It's Jackson. I'm the high ticket sales guy on Instagram. Do you know who I am?
Oh, yeah, I think I reached out to you.
Okay, yeah. I saw that you put in your contact info to watch the free training on high ticket sales. Was that like a mistake, or did you mean to do that?
No, I'm interested, so I did do that.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like, what was kind of the intention? Like, why are you wanting to get into sales specifically?
To be honest, I mean, like, there's a lot of social media stuff going on with, like, internet money, and
Yeah.
you see how efficient you can be, how quick you can earn $1, and so I thought I might as well reach out for some free training, see what there's to offer.
Yeah, 100%, man. You definitely came to the right place for sure. But I mean, you're talking like online money and all these like different ways of making it. Like, why high ticket sales specifically? Why is that what you want to do?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not necessarily the greatest at public speaking, and so low-key, I feel like it would put me out of my comfort zone and could be a good learning investment just in myself. Mm-hmm. And then also, I mean, I hear a lot of good things about it, so.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely a great way to get your feet wet, especially if you're an introvert. Like, let's say, for example, you were to start. Introverts honestly have an advantage going into it because you guys are great listeners. All you really do is just kind of pay attention, actively listen, ask the right questions, and then eventually, obviously get the sale. But like, how much do you know about high ticket sales? Do you think the guy did like a pretty good job of explaining all that, or?
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar. To be honest, it kind of made me want to get into it more, honestly, and
Mm-hmm.
learn more. But yeah.
Yeah. So like, obviously getting into high ticket sales is one thing, but I mean, like, what are you kind of doing for work right now? Are like you in school, or are you working a job? Like, where are you at?
Yeah, I'm currently getting a college degree, and then I'm working on the side as well. So.
Oh, okay, cool. What do you do for work?
I work as a lab technician, so I work in microbiology.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. I've never heard that before. How's that treating you?
It's all right. I mean, the work's not hard, but it's pretty boring, and
Yeah.
I mean, the pay isn't crazy.
Yeah. I was just about to ask. I mean, it sounds like a good gig. Like, how much you making a month from that?
Anywhere from like 2 to 3K usually. So
Okay.
it's a livable wage, but it could be better.
Yeah, that's not bad. So I mean, like, obviously you're making decent money at a pretty cool job. Like, what's kind of the problem? Like, why are you wanting to get into high ticket sales instead of just continuing doing what you're doing?
I mean, to be honest, financial freedom is huge, and it sounds cheesy, but I feel like especially our generation has like a huge push towards financial freedom and being able to do what we want, and doing my current job, I'm not going to get that.
Yeah, of course. So like the kind of timeline that you're on right now with your job, like you just don't see yourself doing that for a very long time?
I would prefer not to, yeah.
Okay. Why not?
I mean, literally just financial freedom. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to just sit at the same job for the rest of my life, do the same thing over and over every day,
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, realistically, you could do it for like another 6 months if you wanted to. Like, no big deal.
Oh yeah, no, I could do it for as long as I need to, but to be honest, if I'm gonna do something else, it'll just fund that. It's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, honestly, like that's the most common route that people typically do. Is just like they'll kind of work on the side, and then they'll just use the funding to, you know, for various different things, and then they'll quit their job, and then full time, and obviously, you know, it's kind of that's just usually how it works. But
Exactly.
yeah, so I wanted to ask, like, what does financial freedom kind of look like for you?
To be honest, just one, definitely being able to not think about money. Like, not, you know, sometimes you go and you're like, oh, I don't know if this is if I can even fill my gas tank up this time, or I don't have the money to go take my girl out for a date, like stuff like that. Being able to not even think about that. And then, I mean, the luxurious side is just like not ever having to work, to be honest.
Yeah. So what do you feel is like kind of holding you back from getting to that lifestyle? Like, you know, not looking at the price tag, like the nice dates, everything like that. Where do you feel stuck?
I don't know. I just don't have a current way out of that, you know? Like, my job's not going to do that. And so that's why, honestly, why I reached out is because, like, it looks like that's something where I could be capable of doing that.
Yeah, for sure. So like with those goals in mind, you know, obviously like financial freedom and everything, do you feel like high ticket sales is the right vehicle for you to hop in to get to that destination, or would you rather take a different route?
I definitely think high ticket sales is probably, it's the first route that I'm looking at, and I'm excited to look at it. So I don't know a ton, and I want to just keep learning.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So like what kind of goals do you have in mind specifically with high ticket sales? Like where do you want to be maybe like 3 months from now?
3 months from now, I probably, low-key, I would love to be making enough to be able to move into my own apartment. And if not that, at least be able to like quit my job, you know?
Yeah. So what's kind of the timeline? Like how fast are you wanting to quit your job? Like is this something that you're really serious about getting into, or is it more so like, oh, you know, or maybe I'll fix it later? Or is it like I need to make this change now?
I mean, the job security is nice, and so I don't want to quit immediately, but I'm willing to put in as much time as I need to outside of work, and then if I start having to take more time during work, I'll just have to take that time off, and then I'm sure eventually it'll just become a full-time thing doing sales instead.
Yeah, no, obviously like the comfortable route, like that's honestly what 99% of people are happy with, and it makes sense. Like as humans, we're biologically wired to choose the comfortable route or whatever feels normal and something we're used to, right? But like getting into high ticket sales, like I want to keep it a buck with you. Like it's a pretty big step in a different direction, right? Obviously, you're going to get to those goals a lot quicker that you were kind of telling me. But like this version of you who is like comfortable, do you think that he's actually going to get to those goals by staying comfortable, or do you think that he needs to take the uncomfortable risk to, you know, eventually get to, you know, not having to look at the price tag or financial freedom or whatever aspect it is?
Yeah, I mean, like I know taking the uncomfortable route is never the easy choice, and so I mean, it's really something where I just have to commit to it at the end of the day.
Yeah. Do you feel like that high ticket sales is something that you want to commit to right now, or is it more so like, oh, you know, maybe I'll start in a couple months?
Yeah, I could, but I mean, I've already kind of got the ball rolling, you know, like I've started doing all this research, started watching all these guides and everything, and it's just like, wow, while I have this momentum, why not ride the wave and just keep going further and further, and hey, maybe this turns into, you know, a dream life.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And you definitely can get there with high ticket sales. So I want to ask, with high ticket sales specifically, and obviously making that jump and getting into it, what, like, if high ticket sales did work out, like, what would that success kind of look like to you? Like, what are you hoping to get out of this specifically?
Honestly, biggest, the social skills. Yeah, you talked about an introvert. I'm definitely an introvert, and so the social skills, like the higher energy, being able to talk quickly on the fly with people is a great thing to have. And then financial freedom as well. Like it really is, all aspects of it are kind of just a win-win.
Yeah, for sure. And then do you have like a specific like income goal with high ticket sales? Is there a specific amount of money that you want to make?
I mean, enough to be able to live comfortably, like month to month, but I mean, everybody would say like 10K is usually like
it's like the buzzword, you know.
Yeah, anywhere from like 5 to 10 to 15 would be insane.
Yeah, For sure. I mean, like, that's definitely reasonable, but I mean, like, why that range specifically? Like, what would that allow you to do, I guess, or what would life look like?
I mean, it would look like me being able to live in a pretty nice apartment, like, not have to worry about groceries and, like, just live a comfortable lifestyle. And I mean, at that point, I could keep going for a higher amount, but that's just a good like starting goal.
Yeah, 100%. So like these goals that you kind of talk about, like financial and obviously like lifestyle and everything, like what do you feel is missing right now between where you are now to where you want to get to with those goals that you kind of mentioned to me?
Experience.
Okay.
Experience, and then just the time, just due to working and being in school.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like if you obtain that experience, like you have the right guidance going through all of this and actually started making money with it, like do you feel like you'd realistically be able to dedicate like a little bit of time each day to actually master the skill and eventually start getting to those goals that you were kind of talking about?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I feel like any reasonable person, to be honest, would see that and be like, okay, I'm actually earning something out of this, so I can see myself putting more time towards it.
Yeah. So more so like guidance, clarity, and direction is something that you're looking for when it comes to getting in high ticket sales. Like, do you feel like that's kind of what's going to bridge the gap for you and actually making shit happen?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, for sure. So like if you had the right guidance, like obviously this is something that you want to get into right now. Like I just want to make sure you're committed before I go any further.
Legitimately, like I kind of just want to do it, you know, and just commit myself to it.
Okay, sure. And then with that guidance that we were kind of talking about, getting to those goals to, you know, allow you that freedom that you're kind of talking about with, you know, not having to look at the price tag and, you know, always stressing about finances. If everything made sense, getting in high ticket sales, and obviously getting the guidance that you need, how would you typically approach investing in yourself?
You know, I mean, from a money side, like right now I don't have a ton to like just spread between a bunch of places, but if I see something that I really believe in and want to invest in, I'm going to invest in that for myself.
Yeah, I got you. So obviously my goal is to make it as much sense as I possibly can for you in order to actually get to your goal. So if it doesn't make sense, like I'm not here to push you into anything. But yeah, I really want to make sure this aligns with kind of what you're looking for. Obviously finances, if it makes sense and you see the value in, you know, getting started with this, like how much would you say you have set aside to get into something like this, to get to those goals that you were kind of talking to me about?
To be honest, probably, and I wouldn't throw it all in immediately, but it's something where I definitely like, yeah, I have a decent amount saved up because I'm not really doing much.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously, like it is a step in a different direction. It's something that you have to commit yourself to. So I want to know, like, is there anything that's kind of holding you back from getting in high ticket sales and being fully committed?
Not really. I mean, like, I'm just working and doing school, so I don't have much else going on. So I mean, that's the whole reason I got into it is realistically, I don't have any super big things holding me back.
Like how committed are you to actually starting? Like, do you see yourself doing this very soon, or is it more something you're going to kind of push off and eventually look into?
Oh, I mean, this is something like right now, I'm willing to put a lot of time towards it. Like I'm ready to take that next step, you know?
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure. And like that was honestly like the reason I wanted to call you, is just see if this would even make sense and if I could even help. But honestly, based on everything that you kind of shared with me, the next best step for you is just to book a quick call. Obviously, like we've only been talking for a couple minutes, right? So I'm just really trying to get an understanding of where you're at right now. But yeah, on that call, we're basically just going to be going over your situation, your goals, and where you're at with everything, and kind of map out whether or not high ticket sales actually makes sense for you. And worst case scenario, you just get a ton of free value. Is that cool?
Exactly, yeah. That sounds great.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna text you a quick Calendly link. Are you familiar with what that is?
No, I'm not.
Okay, cool. It's just like a simple booking app to where whenever you book a call with me, it goes straight into my calendar, so that way I see it, you see it, we don't kind of miss the time, and you're ready to show up and good to go.
Sounds great.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so would you say you're available tomorrow? Do you work tomorrow at all? Okay, yeah, so just real quick, go onto that link that I sent you and just click the 2:30 time slot on there. I just really want to make sure, like, is this time gonna work for you 100%?
No, yeah, 100%.
Okay, I just want to make sure that nothing gets in the way, because I don't want to be wasting your time and I don't want to be wasting mine. And like, this is something that we kind of take seriously, so I want to make sure that nothing's going to get in the way, so that you're actually ready to go, ready to take notes, and going to be fully participant and I guess locked in, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's booked.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, I just saw it pop in actually. Sweet. Yeah, that's pretty much everything, dude. I'm looking forward to the call tomorrow. I'm gonna send you just a couple of videos that you can watch just to get yourself a little bit more familiar with high ticket sales, like what I do specifically. So that way you're fully prepared for the call. Cool?
Okay.
All right, sweet, Ian. It was a pleasure, bro. We'll talk tomorrow. If you have any questions in the meantime, just text me, okay?
Absolutely.
All right, sweet. Take care, man. So that is exactly what a setting call will look like pretty much every single time if you were doing inbound. Now, if you noticed, the framework that we covered earlier in the video is exactly the same thing that I used on this person that I was setting, right? A to Z, breaking ice, build rapport, discovery, pain, urgency, gap creation, investment, and ultimately booking the call. And you can see just how effortlessly I can just go into each individual section just because of how the framework is laid out. It makes it very simple and effective to get the answers that you want out of a prospect because of the types of questions that you're asking. Now, it may not seem like that on the surface level unless you like really look at it, but every single question that I ask always has some sort of intention or reasoning behind it. Even if it doesn't directly get me the answer that I want, I always love to think about it like a game of chess. So one move or one question is eventually going to get me to the ending where I can get the check or the checkmate or whatever I need. So like, let's say, for example, financial qualification, I'll say, okay, so I mean, like, what are you kind of doing for work right now? It's got you wanting to make the switch into something like this. Okay, cool. How long have you been doing that for? Oh, sounds like a great gig, man. How much does that bring in per month typically? So all three of those preliminary questions, 3 or 4, are all going to lead me towards getting the early financial qualifier out of a prospect. And it may not seem like those questions really do anything, but it's setting me up to where I can then easily ask that question of, okay, how much do you make per month? Because not everyone's going to want to give out that information. So you want to ask a couple of preliminary questions just out of curiosity to see where they're at and then eventually get that answer you're looking for with the financial qualification. But as a whole, these calls will typically be anywhere from 8 to 15 minutes. I would say like the sweet spot is a little over 10, but it really just depends on the prospect. And I want you to understand that every single call is going to be a little bit different. So you can use the framework. You can always use this framework, but you need to understand that the types of people that you're talking to are always going to be different. You could have A-type prospect, very, aggressive, assertive, ego, or you could have a different type of prospect like B-type beta, who is more on the passive side, kind of more of secluded and kind of a wuss essentially, and not to shit talk or anything, but it's easier for you to kind of take an assert frame over that person in comparison to the A-type prospect, where you kind of have to humble them a little bit and be a little bit more careful with your words until you've adopted the frame. But regardless of what type of prospect that you're talking to, you notice that this framework will always get you towards easily getting to book the call because they're going to genuinely sound dumb for saying no. If you can check all these boxes off the grocery list, then there really shouldn't be a reason why this person doesn't at least get on the call to see how it would benefit them, because you've built a lot of rapport, you've highlighted the gap, you've created pain and urgency coinciding, you've painted the picture for them on how exactly this is going to look and what it would look like if they actually succeeded. It's where it would sound dumb for them to not get on a call with a professional who is here to help them and give them a game plan and exactly how they can take care of all those things and live the life that they want to live. Another thing that I wanted to mention is this was a B2C call. So this was more so an emotional polling kind of set rather than if you were doing B2B, that would be more logistical. Obviously, B2B would look a little bit different because business owners know the lingo. They know what sales is. They've played the game. They're actively playing the game. So if you try and pull on their heart a little too hard or you ask dumb questions, you're going to end up making a fool out of yourself and they're just going to hang up. So if you're doing B2B, you want to take more of like a straightforward logistical approach, like I'd mentioned in the framework, versus with this call that I just went over being B2C. This is more so how can I genuinely help this person using more of the actual sales tactics, psychology, framing, all that good stuff to book the call. But all in all, that's pretty much what it's going to look like every single time. Whenever you're ripping dials in the CRM, that's typically what a good call will look like every single time. Checked all the boxes and got the book call, and that person should most definitely close. Now we're going to get into closing, which is the other half of high ticket sales. And this is a framework that I have been using and that I teach my students to use, and that a lot of people in the industry who have a very high close rate also use. And essentially, it's the complete framework for running high ticket sales calls that actually close at a high rate, from setting the call frame, dropping the price, whatever it may be. This is going to be the exact system that all the top closers use to generate consistent income, consistent commissions, actually hit 10, 15, even over 20, 30K a month. Literally everything, every step, every technique, and literally every single psychological principle broken down A to Z. So let's get into it. So first things first, the role of a closer. So the closer is essentially the person who runs the full sales call, right? So you learned a little bit about setting appointments, booking calls, those calls are going to go to the closer, which is going to be the person that actually hops on the sales call. So you're going to be face to face with a prospect on a video call like Zoom or Google Meet, for example. And your job is essentially going to be uncovering a little bit more about them, and taking them wherever they are mentally, all the way to actually making a buying decision. Unlike setting, closing is a complete conversation. It's not just like a quick 10, 15-minute call where you're just trying to get them booked. Closing is more so like a 45-minute to an hour-long call where you're diagnosing their problems, you're building emotional investment, presenting the solution, and of course, handling any resistance that also comes up for the prospect. Now, there are two specific scenarios that you're going to find yourself in as a closer. So, scenario one is going to be the book a call funnel. So this means that a prospect who is interested in buying whatever you're selling booked a call directly through a funnel, an ad, or a landing page. So nobody's really spoken to them yet. Maybe they got triaged. Now, essentially, a triager is somebody who contacts or calls a lead or a prospect who has already booked a call, just getting them more hyped for the call, making sure they're still engaged, making sure they're financially qualified, and that they're actually going to show up to the call. But sometimes, whenever you're in scenario one, maybe no one has actually talked to them yet. So you're kind of starting from scratch, which means you need to take them through the entire framework from intent all the way to actually closing and collecting payment. Now, scenario two is a setter book call. So this means that an appointment setter, which we just covered, has already spoken to the prospect. They've been qualified, their pain has been uncovered, and the call has actually already been booked. So in this case, you skip the early discovery, start from emotional certainty, and your setter should have left you notes. So like a little bit about the prospect, a little bit more about their situation, what do their finances kind of look like, what are they doing, and maybe some potential issues that would come up on the call. If they didn't leave notes, that's a problem that you need to fix on your team, but more likely than not, it should already have been taken care of. Now, there are two phases of certainty. So we talked a little bit about emotional certainty and all these things. This closing framework is built around these two core phrases: logical certainty and emotional certainty. Now, logical certainty is where you understand their situation a little bit more, you qualify them, you uncover surface level problems, whereas emotional certainty is where you go deep into the psychology, the urgency, going through future pacing, and building that emotional investment that's actually needed to get the prospect to buy. Most of the real closing is typically going to happen in emotional certainty because prospects are way more likely to pull the trigger with their emotions and then, potentially justify it later on with logic. Now, the closing framework as a whole, I know it looks a little lengthy, but this is the full, complete structure of a closing call, A to Z. Every single step builds on the last. This framework is really designed to move the prospect through a specific emotional arc so that by the time you actually reach the pitch and you're about to close them or, drop the price, buying to them is just going to feel like the most natural decision in the world. It's something that they feel they need to do because everyone loves to buy, but no one loves to be sold. And that's what this framework does a great job of, is just makes them feel like it's just something that they need to do. So first you start out with logical certainty, the first three. So setting the call frame, the intent and discovery, as well as digging into the problem. Then you're going to get into emotional certainty, steps 4 through 8. So rational question, pre-handling any objections, future pacing positive, future pacing negative, commitment to the actual change. Then you're going to get to the close. So giving them the 3-pillar pitch, heat checking them, very important. And then of course, price dropping. Now, one thing that I want to mention before diving into the specifics is it's very important that you do these in order. Do logical first, then emotional, then actually close them. Because if you start mixing things here and there, you get them all out of order, you do emotional before logical and all that different stuff, you're going to get lost. And it's going to be very hard to actually sell the prospect because not only do you not know what you're doing or where you're at in the call or what else that you need from them, they're also going to be confused. And then they're probably going to give you a big fat objection at the end of the call, and you're going to have wasted an hour of your time. So very important that you do this in order. So phase one, logical certainty. So this is really where you're going to capture a surface level idea or understanding and basic qualifications of a prospect. So very first thing you're going to do is set the call frame. You're establishing structure and control. This is very, very important because before you even ask a single question, you need to make sure that the prospect knows what they're about to get into and what this call is going to look like. Because if you do not set the frame, the call is just going to be a simple coffee chat. They're going to ask you a bunch of questions, not going to have any direction, and you're basically just going to end up chopping it up with your boy. You're never going to get to the close. You're not going to make any money. So the frame gives you permission to lead the entire conversation. Now, an example. Hey, John, great to meet you, man. So I like to keep these calls super duper simple. I'm just going to ask you a few questions, see where you're at with everything, and kind of figure out if this even makes sense for you. And then from there, we'll talk logistics and the investment side of things moving forward with X coach or whatever it is. And if it does make sense, great. And if it doesn't, we'll also let you know and send you on your merry way. Cool? Easy frame. That's literally it. Now they know exactly what's going to happen. They have an expectation. They're going to feel super comfortable whenever you start asking them questions because all the pressure's off. They know what to expect. And you've given yourself a blank slate to ask whatever you want for the entire rest of the call. It's free real estate. It's not their call. It's your call. And they're here to get information and value and a solution from you and not the other way around. Next is going to be finding the intent or discovering why they're here. Who are they? What is this really all about for them? And you really need to understand two important things in this section: why they showed up and what their current situation is. If a setter already spoke to them, great. You can reference the notes that they left you. So if you do have setter notes, you could say, yeah, cool. So, I mean, I have some of your notes here from one of my coaches, one of my colleagues, one of my partners, and he mentioned that you were kind of looking into, summary of their situation, pain, whatever it is that they mentioned. Does that sound about right? And then you can kind of get into it from there. You can probe, you can peel back the layers of the onion and get right into it. Simple as that. Now, if you don't have any setter notes and they just straight up booked a call through some funnel, here's what you can ask with initial intent questions. There are two types depending on the offer. If the prospect is doing something new, like starting a business, like learning some sort of skill set or entering a new industry, you can ask them, what was the intent behind looking into this specific topic or business model? What are you really hoping to get out of it? If the prospect is improving something that they already have, so like they're trying to level up their skills, scale a current business, optimize the system, whatever it is, you're going to ask them, what do you feel like specifically you need help with in order to get to desired outcome, whatever it is that they told you? Both of these questions are going to lead to their tangible goal that they want to achieve. The difference is really just the framing. Either way, the answer is going to give you something concrete in order to build the rest of the call around that. And I want to mention every single call is going to be different. You're never going to encounter the same prospect twice unless, it's a follow-up call. So you're just going to have to play around with it a little bit and kind of find out what works best for you. Next is digging into the problem. So this is really where you're going to want them to understand that they have a serious problem. It's on a silver platter and they have to actually do something about it. And a lot of closers will typically miss this section or they'll just get surface level answers. For instance, the prospect gives you a super surface level answer and you kind of just move on to the next question. Don't do that. If somebody says my job is kind of bad, it pays the bills, and you just nod and keep going, you're leaving money on the table. You're not really getting them to understand the root problem that they have. Not only are you not understanding it, but the prospect is also not even understanding it themselves. So very, very, very important that you probe deeper. A lot of people mess this up. So an example sequence could be like, okay, well, I mean, like what specifically about the job is making you kind of feel that way? How long has that been a thing for? Does that kind of stress you out? Whatever you want to say, really just get into the deep reason as to why it's a problem or why that is. Now, training the prospect. Here's something that a lot of people really don't understand. You're going to train the prospect on how to answer from the very first question. If they give you some sort of vague, wishy-washy BS answer and you kind of just accept it, they're going to repeat that pattern. And you just simply taught them that they can just give a bullshit answer to you. Now, every answer for the rest of the sales call is going to be like that. It's going to be the exact same way. But if you push back early, you redirect and ask a sharper question, you get them to actually explain themselves, their pattern recognition is going to kick in and they're going to answer every single following question exactly the same. It is simply just classical conditioning. It's the standard that you set within the first few minutes that dictates the quality of the actual call. So don't miss this. Now, emotional certainty. This is where the real closing is going to happen. This is where you're actually going to get the prospect bought in. And the first thing that you're going to do is the rationale question. Now, this is going to be a great way of pre-handling the I'm just going to do it myself objection, because a lot of people will come in. Some of them will have an ego to be like, oh, I can maybe do it myself. I was just looking to get some value and some information to see how I could start. Before you go any further, you need to eliminate that common thought that a lot of people have, or that escape route that people love to use at the end of the call when you're 50 minutes in, you're like, oh, this guy's going to close. And they're like, oh, well, I appreciate all the information, man. I'll kind of hit you back if anything goes wrong or update you. And it's just like a gut punch. You know what I mean? So the rationale question forces them to tell you why doing it alone is not going to work for them. It's creating a gap. It makes them need you. So the structure would kind of go something like this. It would be, just so I understand your point of view here, besides the problem that you previously mentioned, what is the main reason that you're even looking into something more advanced, like help, training, guidance, rather than just, I don't know, doubling down on what you kind of just been doing and doing the free stuff online, watching YouTube videos and kind of just figuring out yourself like the average person? I mean, why not do that? And this is kind of a double down question at the same exact time, something we previously mentioned in the setting framework. And this is a very, very powerful thing to use. Now, really pay attention to the tonality here. When you say doing it yourself like the average person or just doing the free stuff, you want to make that option sound very unappealing, not like an aggressive, like pushing them, but more in like a nonchalant, kind of subtle way. Your tone should make them feel like the do-it-yourself route is like the lesser option, or like the option that they're probably going to fail at, or like the unattractive option. And the prospect will naturally lean towards the alternative, the thing that's actually going to get them help and actually going to get them to where they want to be. At this point, they're going to have to justify to you why they need help. So now they're not even going to be able to use the I need to do it myself objection. They're selling themselves on why that won't work and why it will not work in the future. And once they've said that aloud, they literally can't give you that objection later. So very important that you just get that out of the way. Now, obviously, there are going to be a lot more objections than I can just do it myself. That's not even the most common one. So at this point, you really need to neutralize their biggest concern before you get to the pitch, and you need to figure out what that is, because it is most definitely going to come out later if you do not take care of it. The most common objection that I see, or just statistically speaking from most closers, that you'll hear at the end of the call, is always going to be the same objection that has stopped them in the past. So whatever prevented them from getting help in the first place, or beforehand, is the exact thing that they're going to throw at you at the pitch. So you need to be really sure that you surface that and neutralize it now before you actually get to the pitch and talk numbers and pricing, because they're just going to throw the same exact thing at you. So a great opening question that I always love saying is, okay, so before you and I were speaking, were you out there looking for other ways to get that help training solution, or, what were you kind of doing about it? Now from there, then you can eventually get to that problem. And that's where the decision tree comes into play. So their answer is going to create a decision tree, and each branch is going to lead you to uncover and neutralize each and every objection a little bit differently. So if they say, oh no, I was looking, you ask, okay, like what kind of prevented you? Or like, why not get started? Then they're going to give you the objection. Oh, I don't have the money. I don't have the time. Like my partner didn't approve, whatever BS they're going to give you. Or if they say, yeah, but it didn't move forward. Like if they've already been on a sales call before, okay, like what kind of prevented you from moving forward? Same exact thing. Then they're going to reveal that objection. They're going to give you the actual reason why they didn't take the opportunity. Or yeah, I got a bad result. I didn't see the progress I wanted to. I actually got scammed or burned. So then you would ask, okay, what do you need to see this time to feel confident that it would actually work? And then they're going to give you the information. They're going to give you the criteria that you can plug in your pitch later that feels like a tailored solution that's going to make them say yes every time. And lastly, yeah, I got a good result. Now, this one isn't very, very common, but you would say something like, okay, if you've got a good result, what has got you looking for something new? Why do you want to venture into something else, like this business model or whatever? Then they're going to explain why the old situation is not ideal. It's not enough. So that's going to pre-handle the why do I need you? Why can I not just do it myself? So that's another great way to handle that initial objection. But once you figure out what the actual problem is, you have to neutralize it. So once they reveal the objection or the real problem, you're going to neutralize it with one question. You'll say, okay, so man, out of curiosity, like what kind of shifted for you now then? If money, time, whatever objection BS they're giving you was preventing you in the past, what kind of change that has you open to looking for help now, or a solution, or whatever it may be? Now they're going to tell you why that old objection no longer applies to them, because they just killed their own objection. You didn't even have to do any of the heavy lifting. They just did it all themselves. They cannot bring it back up after the pitch without contradicting what they already told you. That's why this part is so important. Now, after you've gotten all the pre-handling out of the way, whatever it may be, after those couple examples I just gave you, obviously those aren't going to be all of them, but just a handful to get you started, you're going to move into future pacing positive. So this is where you're going to build the emotional high. This is where you're going to give them kind of that dopamine hit a little bit. You want to take the prospect to the peak of positive emotion. You're going to make them feel and visualize and understand in vivid detail what it would look like when they actually achieve their goal. No vague answers. You want specific, tangible, visual details to get the prospect emotionally invested in what it would look like if they actually said yes. Now, there's an analogy that I always love to use. It's the Usain Bolt analogy. This is completely optional. You don't have to do this. But before you get into the future pacing, you can use this simple analogy to prime them for giving you the answer that you actually want to hear. So you could say, for example, can I offer you a quick perspective? So if you take the fastest man in the world, you put him on a starting line, he's going to run pretty damn fast, right? But if you put a lion behind him and he's chasing him down, obviously he's going to run even faster, right? He doesn't want to die. The thing is, most successful people have that strong pull towards what they want, but they also have a strong consequence to failure pushing them. Both matter. Right? Then that's going to set you up to ask the future pacing question. So you'd say something like, okay, so let's say there was a way of helping you achieve your goal, whatever it was that they told you. What would tangibly be different for you at that point? They're going to give you some vague general answer 99% of the time, and that's honestly expected. But it's going to be your job to probe them and really paint the picture in detail. And you don't want just one little idea that they had in their mind. You want at least like 2 to 3 vivid, specific visualizations that they actually see themselves doing. So just to give you a quick couple of examples, if they were to give you that general answer, if they say, oh, I could travel. Okay, well, where would you go? Who would you take? Would family come with you? Girlfriend, whoever? Where would you stay? Like really make them visualize that shit more than just saying, oh, I'd travel. It's not strong enough. Get them to really understand what that would look like. Or, I would feel more confident. Okay, in what situation specifically would your confidence change the most? Then they're going to visualize themselves actually being confident in specific scenarios that they had for themselves, like, oh, maybe talking to a girl, or maybe talking to high-level individuals, or, maybe just being more confident in general with people, right? Anything like that. Or if they, oh, I'd have more free time. Okay, well, what would you actually do with the time? Like, what would an ideal day look like for you if you were actually hitting those goals? Or another really good one, okay, I could provide for my family. Okay, what's the first thing that you would do for them? How would you think that they would feel? How much would that mean to you if you were actually able to do that for them? Now, I want to mention if you're selling to a business owner, you want to first get them to visualize what changes for the business, like revenue, team growth systems, whatever it may be. Then you want to make it personal because it's going to be a little bit different with B2B. You'd say, and obviously as the owner, man, like what would even be different for you at that point? You need to really connect the business outcome to their personal life. That's where that real emotion that they have is actually living. Now, after really gassing them up, getting them sold on the actual vision, the outcome, the dream, the vacation, you're going to want to immediately flip it on them and drop them to the lowest low. So right after the peak of a positive emotion, flip it immediately. You take them from the highest high to the lowest low as soon as humanly possible. This contrast that you're making or creating is what's going to give them the urgency to actually do something about it now. So the emotion graph, I want you to picture a graph for a second where the y-axis is emotion and the x-axis is time. During the logical certainty at the beginning of the call, you want to bring them slightly negative as they talk about their problems. Then during the positive future pace, which we just did, you're going to want to take them to the highest peak of positive emotion, like I said. Then immediately after that, you're going to drop them all the way down to the most negative point on the graph. The closer these two extremes are to each other in time, the more intense that urgency is really going to feel. It's going to hit them like a truck. Or for example, the stove versus the sauna. I love using this analogy. If you put your hand on the hot stove, how fast you want to pull it away? Obviously immediately because your hand will be burning, right? It's intense, it's fast. Your body is going to react instantly. It's going to be, oh, you know? Now, if you sit in the sauna for an hour, the cumulative heat is way more than that of the stove, but you don't feel the same urgency to leave because you're getting baked, like slowly over time. The pain is spread out over time. And it feels like the same thing on a sales call. So the more that you drag out that emotional contrast, the less intense that it's actually going to feel. You really want to make sure that the positive peak and the negative drop happen as close together as humanly possible. Because like I said, that is really what's going to create the feeling of, I need to do something right now. And a good example of like a negative future pace question that you could ask the prospect is, okay, and what if you don't? Like, what happens if you stay in the same position where their specific problem keeps going for the next 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, or even, 2 years? Shit, man. What would even happen at that point? Tonality is very key here. You want to be humanistic. I know it's easy for me to just say the tone, and it's a whole lot different whenever you're actually talking to a prospect. But the point I'm trying to make is it's going to be the same as the positive side. You're always going to be looking for 2 to 3 vivid, specific negatives and positives, and whatever it may be, but in this case, negative. And you want to probe the details. Why? Why is that the case? What would you do? How would that look like? What would that kind of mean to you if you were doing that? And for B2C specifically, so business to client, always, always, always follow up with, how would you feel at that point? Right? Because then they're going to verbalize that emotion. They're going to say it not only to themselves, but to you as well, which makes it even more real for you and the prospect. And really the key principle here is whenever you expand a problem over time into the future, it becomes a much bigger deal because it's a long time. It's their life. They understand that their life is valuable and they actually want to do something about it. They want to change, right? So if for example, if you were just to miss one day at the gym, it wouldn't be a big deal. But if you missed like an entire year of the gym, you'd lose all your gains. You'd either be skinny, you'd be fat, whatever it is. You're actually helping them see the full trajectory of what it would actually look like if they stayed in the same spot, they stayed comfortable, and they actually never made that change to get themselves from point A to point B. Then once you've guided them through the highest high and the lowest low, now it's really time to get them to draw the line in the sand, and that's exactly what you're going to do in the commitment to change section. So after the emotional contrast, you need them to commit out loud. So like 3 micro commitments that lock them in before the pitch. Like for example, number 1, are you willing to settle for that? Okay, so yeah, this will sound like an obvious question, but I mean, is this something that you're actually willing to settle for? Those things that I just mentioned, the negative consequence, whatever it was, they're obviously going to say no. It's like the reverse of a yes ladder question. Obviously not. They don't want to stay in the same spot. And why now though? Like, because you realistically could wait for another 6 months. Now they're having to prove to themselves, justify to you and themselves, subconsciously and subconsciously, that now is the right time. They're creating their own urgency. They're doing all the heavy lifting. You're not selling them. You're not manipulating them. It's just simply them saying why they need to make a change and actually do it. And last but certainly not least, whose responsibility is it? Because a lot of the times people love to point the finger. They love to make excuses. They love to, blame anything and everything that isn't themselves. So you need to get them to understand that their responsibility is their responsibility. And you can do that by saying, and whose responsibility do you feel like it is to actually say I've had enough and make that change? Because if somebody were to give you the I need to talk to my partner objection, they're placing that responsibility on somebody else. Their decision, that person's idea and perspective is what their life is going to look like. So you need to get them to pinpoint that all of this is completely their responsibility. Then they're going to say it is. They're going to own it, right? They're not waiting for somebody else's permission or mommy and daddy to say yes, or got to go talk to my girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, right? They're blaming the circumstance, right? They've committed verbally to 3 things. I'm not going to settle. I'm going to do it now. And it is entirely on me. That is the perfect setup. That is literally everything that you need before you actually get into the pitch. They're not blaming circumstances. They're taking full responsibility and blaming themselves. Honestly, they've committed verbally to 3 things now. I'm not going to settle. I'm going to do it now, important, and it is actually only on me. That is literally the perfect setup that you need before you get into the 3-pillar pitch. Now, speak of the devil, this is where you're going to present the solution and eventually ask for the sale, hopefully with no objections, of course. So we're going to do that by using the 3-pillar pitch. Now, a smooth transition, you need permission to pitch, right? You don't want to just launch into it. Here's a smooth transition that you can always use. Well, based on what I've heard, John, obviously you mentioning that pain point and because of that consequence and obviously wanting you to get to that goal, I think that what we're doing could definitely help you. And if it would be appropriate from here, we could put together a game plan of course, how we could actually get you to that goal and what would it kind of look like. Would that be appropriate or what would you want to do from here? And of course, they're going to be like, yeah, I want to see the solution. If you've done all these preliminary steps correctly, why would they not want to see the solution to their problems? It doesn't make sense. They're always going to say yes. And now you're going to provide a solution to getting over all of that and actually getting to that goal. So of course they're going to want to hear the plan, right? So your pitch is going to have 3 pillars, right? Each pillar is a core component of the offer. Each one is tied down to directly a specific problem they may have or their pain. And this is really what's going to make the pitch feel personalized, not like a cookie cutter or something that's scripted, something that makes them feel like, damn, this is literally for me. So here's a quick formula that you would use. So you would say, okay, so like the first, you would mention first, second, or third pillar, and then you would say the pillar name. Because you know how you mentioned, and then you would say their specific problem, and then you would say, okay, so what we do, and then you would say how the pillar solves it. And you say, does that make sense? Do you feel like that would be helpful for you? And you're doing 3 things with each pillar. You're naming the solution, you're connecting it directly to their problem using their own words, and you're getting a micro agreement that it would actually benefit them in the long run. So by the time you finish all 3 of your pillars, they're going to have said yes 3 times to the fact that your offer is going to solve exactly what they need. And by the time that you finish all 3 of the pillars, they're going to have said yes to you 3 times. And by the time you finish all 3 pillars, they would have said yes 3 separate times to the fact that your offer is solving their exact problem. And they genuinely believe that they can actually make it work. Now, before you talk any sort of numbers or get into the actual closing, you want to hit the prospect with a heat check. Now, this is very, very important because you don't want the prospect to just be like, okay, thank you for the valuable information. I'll take a look at it and I'll get back to you in a couple of days. You don't want that, oh, damn, I just got cooked. You want them to confirm that they actually believe it'll work, which will make it really easy for you to eventually drop the price. So after the pitch, you want to gauge where they're at before you talk money. And do not assume that they are sold just because they were nodding their head along. And odds are they're probably just doing that because you are nodding your head as well and they're just mirroring you. But here's some heat check questions that you can ask. Based on everything that we kind of covered, do you actually feel like this would help you get to your goal? Or like you want to name their specific goal. Very important. They're obviously going to say yes. Okay. And then you're going to go deeper. Okay. Well, why though? Like why is that really the key for you? What is actually going to help you the most? And they're going to sell themselves on why the offer is golden for them and why they think it'll help them specifically, what specific pillar that they actually resonated with the most. And you're going to double down on that too. You're going to say, yeah, okay, because having that thing that they just said, right? What do you feel like that would actually do for you or even more just personally for yourself? Now you're stacking one more layer of emotional investment right before the actual price drop. And they're not just agreeing that the program works. They're not just saying, oh, yeah, like it's cool. I can see how it works for their people. No, they're articulating exactly why and how it would change their life specifically. And that is the exact energy that you're going to want right before the actual price comes up. Or you could even hit them with the 1 out of 10. I always love saying the 1 out of 10. So I'd be like, scale 1 out of 10, 1 being this guy needs to shut the hell up. I'm going to dip off this call. Or 10 being like, I'm ready to go. I'm going to make my first 100 bands in 6 months. Or whatever you want to say, whatever phrase. Or on a scale 1 out of 10, how confident are you this will actually help you? If they say anything below a 10, very important that you ask, okay, well, what would make it a 10 for you? You know, because then they're going to tell you exactly what is not resolved yet, what exactly is missing, or what problem they still have before they actually move forward. Very important. Think of it as like the last thing that you need to do before you drop the price, because it could potentially get the prospect to admit the actual objection right before you drop the price. Because when you do price drop, it's going to be a whole different ball game. The ball's in their court, right? Now you got to try and steal it back from them if they say no. But yeah, then after that, you're going to get into the price drops. You're going to state the investment. You're going to shut up. You're going to let the silence do a lot of the work. Let them think, let them process, and then they're going to give you a decision. So this is honestly the simplest step in the entire framework, but it is a little bit hard and some people will mess it up, because you will really want to state the price and stop talking. A lot of people get really uncomfortable whenever it's just silence. It's a little awkward, whatever. But that silence is literally what is going to get you the sale. So for me personally, what I always love doing is whenever I drop the price, I just take a sip of my water. So a price drop would kind of look something like this. Cool. Yeah. So well, based on everything that I've heard, the total investment to actually get you to the point of, their goal, their specific goal, so that you can, and you're going to mention their positive future pace outcome and avoid negative consequence, is going to be price 10K. 100K, whatever it is, how would you like to proceed? Then please, 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 please stop talking. Some people will argue that it's important that you talk and provide value after dropping the price, but I personally have had multiple instances where I've continued to talk about the program and the value and all these things, and it really just makes you sound like you're trying to justify the price. And in their head, it's going to sound like, oh, it's not worth it. This guy's trying to convince me now. And like I said, I've had multiple instances where people just payment dip or like they dip at price drop. And either that's because they're scared, they don't believe in it, or you honestly messed up something in the discovery. Yeah, in my opinion, you never really want to justify it. You don't want to say, oh, well, it costs us much because of that. Then you're undervaluing, you're communicating that the price needs justification, right? It's not valid. So just let the awkwardness do the work. I promise you it's going to close more deals than you yapping ever would. And like I said, if you did everything right in the discovery, everything correct in the emotional certainty, all those previous steps, the price should not be a problem. They should already understand that it's coming because you mentioned it at the beginning of the call too. They've already articulated why they need this, why it needs to happen now, why it's their responsibility, not anybody else's. It's solely on them. So the price is just the logistics of actually making it happen. Now, if they buy, great. If they give you an objection, you handle it. That's literally what the objection handling section is for, which we'll be going into later in the video. Now, another important thing is B2B versus B2C closing. The framework is honestly going to stay the same structurally. All the steps are still going to apply, but the difference is in how you actually execute each step. And this little graph here is very similar to the one that we showed earlier in the setter framework. But there's a big key difference. So in B2C, everything is going to be personal from the start. It's all about them and their goals, their feelings, their life, where they want to get to, how we're going to help. But in B2B, you need to first establish what changes for the business. You want to prioritize the business rather than the person. Then you're going to bridge what that means for them into them personally as the owner, right? Because the business outcome is the logical hook. A lot of business owners want the logical appeal. They're not really going to buy an emotion. They're going to buy if it makes sense and it's going to make them money. So the personal impact is where the emotion lives. So you still need both, but it's just the order of operations is a little bit different. Now, here's a quick reference for the entire full closing framework at a glance, all the things that we just specifically went over. Obviously, logical certainty first, then emotional, then the close. But I want you to remember this entire framework exists to build so much emotional urgency that buying feels like the only logical thing to do for the prospect. You're not trying to sell someone some bullshit. You're not manipulating them. You're not being salesy, not pushing, convincing, whatever. Again, people will always buy with emotion and then justify with logic every single time. Okay, so now we're going to be going over a full in-depth closing call. Now, this one is definitely going to be a little bit longer than the setting call for good reason, right? It's a full-blown sales call. So make sure to take notes if you're planning on watching the whole call. There we go. There we go.
Nice.
I was wondering what was going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, how's everything going, dude?
Yeah, not bad. How's yourself?
Doing pretty good. You're from the UK, yeah?
Yeah, Scotland.
Wow. Okay. What time is it there for you?
It's 5:30 now.
5:30, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. What
Yeah.
you been
What about you?
It's 11:32. Yeah, 11:32.
All right. Okay. Nice.
Yeah, pretty big pretty big time zone.
Yeah, that's a big
Um
difference.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, dude, honestly, if you're ready for it, we can dive straight in.
Yeah, good to go.
All right, sweet. So obviously you were on the phone with George a little while
Mm,
ago. I don't recall when exactly, but
yeah.
I guess like the best place for me to start is just to kind of ask you like what do you feel like motivated you to hop on the call?
What was that? Sorry, you cut out for a second.
I was saying like what kind of motivated you to get on the call?
Um, I don't know. I don't know what in particular, but just like I don't know. I've saw the way that you've like changed your life with entrepreneurship, and I don't know. I'd like to do the same with mine
Yeah, for sure. I
a
mean,
little
is there
bit, you
like
know.
a specific reason like why you're wanting to make the change?
Yeah, work's just like work's tough, and I want more like freedom with my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, what do you do for work if you don't mind me asking? I don't know
I
if we've
do
spoken earlier.
commercial diving, so
Really?
yeah, I'm usually in the naval base working, but it's a whole lot of hours. You know?
Yeah. So are
Yeah.
you still doing that to this day or?
I'm doing it, but I'm not doing it so much for now because I've injured my hand a bit, but so I've got a good bit of time off for now.
Okay. I mean, how many hours are you working per week, would you say?
Well, back when I was working a lot, it was like sometimes like 60, 100 hours.
Yeah.
Like it can be a lot, but the now I'm maybe only working like 1 or 2 days a week.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah.
How much were you making whenever you were working full time? I'm sure Underwater pays pretty
Um,
well, from what I've heard.
yeah, no, it was decent. It was about 5,000 a month, 6,000. Just depends on what jobs we're on though.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome. So I know you like your hand, so that kind of sucks and everything. And I don't know what happened exactly.
yeah.
But with like the entrepreneurship game and everything, like, have you been wanting to get into this space for a while? Like, where's your head at with
I
all that?
have, yeah, I've been wanting to do it for a while, but I've not really done much about it. Like I've not got any experience with much of this stuff, you know.
Why do you feel
Like I've
like you haven't
watched
like done
YouTube
anything?
videos. I don't really know, honestly. Just don't know, I just haven't made the step yet, I guess.
What do you feel is like preventing you from making that step?
Don't know, I just couldn't find something that felt right, you know?
Yeah. No, there's definitely a lot out there. I'll say like there's a ton of different business models.
Yeah.
Do you feel differently about high ticket sales though? Like why are you wanting to get into sales specifically?
I'm not sure. Like the only other things I've really looked at has been like drop shipping and stuff. And I don't know, I just feel like it's a bit quite like saturated almost, like everyone's always talking about it.
Yeah.
But I don't know as much about high ticket sales.
Yeah. Have you like done your
But
research on it at all, or are you pretty familiar with how
I've
it works?
I've done a little bit, yeah, but I'm still like new to it, you know.
Yeah. No, that's totally fine. I mean, there are a lot of people that get into the space and start making money that really didn't know much about it getting into it, right? And that was kind
Yeah,
of me whenever I started. Everyone's kind of started as a humble beginner. So I wouldn't knock yourself for not really knowing anything because I mean, how else are you gonna improve like if you don't start? You know, like
yeah,
if you just start, you keep going and you get better and better and better, you're gonna get to that point where you know a lot, right? So I
yeah,
wouldn't I wouldn't obsess over not knowing much just because like that was everyone whenever they started,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Exactly. Got to start somewhere.
Exactly, exactly. So how long have you been, I guess, in the entrepreneurship space for, or like trying to get into it?
Not long really, maybe a month or something.
A month, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know you said obviously like having more freedom and everything with your life, but is there like a bigger reason why you're, I guess, trying to get into all this?
Um, I don't know. I just don't want to work like I don't know. I feel like I'm just kind of slaving away because like most of the jobs I've done have been like kind of labor jobs. Like it's been hard, and I feel like I'm almost just giving up my health
Yeah.
in some way to just keep doing it, and I'm not really progressing with it. You
Yeah.
know?
I mean, like how much longer are you wanting to really do that for? You know, it's very like draining on your body and your mind, and
Yeah.
like I guess my
Exactly.
question is like how long do you want to put up with it? Because it sounds like you're pretty much done, you know?
Yeah. Well, preferably as little time as possible, honestly. But I can manage.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's definitely fair. I mean, it pays the bills. I mean, obviously you make pretty good money, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
are you familiar with how much you could make with high ticket sales?
I mean, I've heard a little bit about like just on your videos though, really.
Yeah. Was that
Yeah.
kind of like your first I guess I don't want to say taste, like first experience, or I guess like first person to kind of show you what all this is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, dope. Have you ever like done sales before at all or anything like that?
Nah. No, I've not done
Okay. So like
anything like that really.
what's so interesting about it to you then? I mean, I know you said you were looking at drop shipping, maybe it's like a little saturated, but I'm just kind of curious, like why do you want to do high ticket sales?
I don't know. I've always been interested in sales because it's like it's based off of like your skill and like I don't know how good you are at like
Hmm.
talking to people and stuff like that. And that's something that I've been wanting to improve a lot as well.
Yeah, I mean, like why are you wanting to improve? Like just like your people skills or
Yeah, people skills, just like talking and stuff like that. Because I never used to be. I used to be like quite introverted, not able to talk to people and stuff. So
yeah. No, I was
just
the exact same way. I feel like we had a
yeah,
very similar reason as to why we wanted to get into sales, just because whenever I was a kid, super introverted, I always just like I always like hid behind my mom's legs whenever I was getting introduced to people.
yeah,
I couldn't talk to anybody. I was like kind of like the quiet kid in school. I mean, of course, like my friends, I was my true self, and it was great. But anybody else, and like if I just had like a class by myself, I'd never talk to anyone. I'd never raise my hand. I'd never talk to the teacher. I just like wouldn't say anything, you know. And it got to a point where I
Yeah,
was like, hey, I don't want to be this person. I want to be like I don't want to be extroverted, but I want to like become a people person. I want to become good at people and socializing and not being like an introverted kid. Because like, where is that gonna get me? You know what I mean? Like, if
yeah.
anything, it's just a
No,
negative.
I agree. That's the way I felt. You know.
Yeah. So then I kind of found out about sales, and whenever I was starting entrepreneurship and getting into the game, I knew I wanted to escape. My job wasn't super like physically demanding, but
Yeah,
yeah, I very relate to like the feeling of just slaving away and not really doing much with your life, and it just feels like you're like, what am I doing, right?
yeah,
And that's kind of how I came across sales, and I figured that I want to get better at people. I want to learn a high value skill that is going to pay me for the rest of my life. And then from there, I was just addicted. I was obsessed, and I worked at it every single day. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Obviously, I had
yeah.
to
No,
commit myself, and not everybody is. That's kind of like the biggest thing that holds people back from succeeding is just not starting at all, or like not taking that big step. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. I get you. Feel the same way about a lot of things. You know.
For sure. So do you feel like there's a bigger reason as like why you're wanting to make the change? I mean, obviously, like the job is, I don't know. I mean, it's not like, I mean, it pays you good, but I mean, like you said yourself, it's pretty taxing on you, like mentally and
Yeah,
physically.
not something I want to do forever. You know. I don't know. I'd say I've always felt like I need to make a big change, like a big step to start doing something new. And yeah, I'm not sure really.
Yeah. Well, what do you feels like holding you back, or I guess in the past, like held you back from taking that next step?
Probably just a bit of laziness, like working a lot, and then you come home and it's like just want to sleep. You know,
Yeah.
don't want to do much else.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
but
I love
since
sleeping.
I've had a bit more time off, you know, I've been able to think about it more and just try and make a difference. You know.
Yeah. Do you feel like you could personally overcome that laziness and achieve like the life that you want to achieve?
Yeah, yeah, I do. You know,
Because I don't. No, go ahead. Sorry.
I've worked hard at things before, and I've got achievements, so I know I can dedicate myself. You
Yeah.
know, I just want to make sure I'm dedicating myself to the right thing.
Yeah. So what do you feel would make this the right thing for you then?
Mm, I'd say just well, I don't know. It seems like the right thing already because you know I want to develop more people skills,
Hmm.
become more social. Obviously, if there's like opportunities to make better money and stuff, you know, it just seems like a good fit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So I mean, obviously, like wanting to live the better lifestyle and like having that social skill you're trying to talk about. Like, is there? I mean, aside from all that, like, do you feel there's like a bigger reason why you're wanting to succeed, like retiring the parents or just like creating a better life for yourself? Like what is like the big overall goal as to I guess why you're venturing into entrepreneurship? Because it's a hard path.
Well, overall goal, I'd say, you know, just I want to make my parents proud, and I want to I don't know, I want to like be able to provide for the people I care about, you know,
Yeah.
because right now I just feel like I'm, you know, slaving away,
Hmm.
just not really doing what I'm capable of.
Yeah. You feel like you can't provide for the people that are close to you as well as you want to,
Yeah, yeah,
just because you're working so much. I mean, obviously like the money's pretty good, but even like with the time constraint too, like just working all the time, don't really get to
yeah,
spend time with anybody. I don't know how close you are with relatives and things like that, but I can imagine, just going to work every day, not really having any time for anything, and it just being super taxing. And essentially, you're just going down that rabbit hole of like, what am I doing in my life? Like, I'm sacrificing my health, my mental health as well, and not really getting to live the life that I want to live.
yeah,
And usually, what ends up happening, and this happened to me, and this is probably going to happen if not already happened to you, is to where the cost of staying the same is greater than the cost of taking action and dedicating and committing yourself to something every day, right? Because
yep,
you realize, hey, this route that I'm going right now isn't gonna get me anywhere. Like I want to have all these things. Maybe you're materialistic, maybe you're not, but like you said yourself, you want to provide for your family and relatives and people that are close to you, right? And there's not really a way of doing that in the stage that you're in right now. So my guess is that's probably like your biggest driving factor. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah.
um,
No, I'd say you put it perfectly there.
yeah, because like
Mm.
that was what it was for me as well. Even with the
Mm.
introverted thing as well.
Yeah.
Just not wanting to be that shy little kid anymore, and wanting to find a way to make money online so that I could provide for my parents and set a good example for my little brother, and show him kind of what's possible.
Yeah.
And that's honestly a requirement. That's why I asked you that question, is because one, I just want to see how serious you are about actually getting into this. And the second thing is, if you're trying to do this solely for the benefit of yourself, you're probably going to end up failing. Just from personal experience, your why, your reason as to why you're doing all this. That's why I asked you the question. Has to
Yeah.
be greater than yourself. It can't
Yeah.
be solely for the benefit of yourself and having a better life for yourself. It has to be greater than you. Because on those days where you don't want to work, like you mentioned, um, laziness used to, I don't know if it still um, is a big problem for you, right? And on those days where you're super lazy, you don't want to work, you don't really have the drive to push yourself a little bit, is the day that you need to realize, kind of why you started all this, for that family, for, retiring my parents, being a great son and kind of just providing back to them because they've given so much to you. And
Yeah.
that is really what is going to motivate you to work every single day, genuinely.
Yeah.
So, I
Nah,
mean,
I understand that. Yeah.
I really just wanted to see how serious you are because um, everyone tells me like, yeah, I want to get in high ticket sales, but not everyone's ready to put that pen to the paper. That's kind of why I'm on this call with you personally. I really just wanted to see if this is something you're genuinely serious about, and if there was kind of anything holding you back from getting started.
Yeah. Sorry, can you give me a second? Someone's
Yeah,
knocking
yeah,
my
yeah.
door.
No worries.
Thank you. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that.
All good?
Yeah, all good.
No worries. No worries. What was I saying? What was the last thing I mentioned to you? Do you remember? I lost my
No,
train of
sorry,
thought.
I just got distracted there, my bad.
Yeah, no, no, no. I was the same.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I remember. Yeah, I was asking you. I was just trying to gauge that. I asked you that question specifically because I wanted to see how serious you are and kind of what your reasons as to why you're wanting to do this was because again, like a lot of people say they want to do it, but when the time comes, they hesitate and they don't do it. So I was just curious, like what your motive was, because the motive has to be super strong if you're
Yeah.
wanting to take that leap, right? And that's why I was saying, like, I'm just trying to gauge how serious you are and if this is something like you actually want to commit yourself to. Because I can show you to the water, but if you don't want to drink from it, there's not really much I can do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get what you mean.
So, like, do you feel like if everything made sense, obviously you don't know too much about high ticket sales. I'm going to go into depth about it a lot. But my only concern is like if everything made sense, you were able to get started, make
Mm.
I guess whatever income you were wanting to make. Would there be like a reason? I guess like why you wouldn't want to start? Do you feel like there'd be anything holding you back?
No, honestly, no. I'd say before, like a while ago, it would have been that I just didn't want to talk to people and stuff. But I'd say recently, as you put it, the the pain of staying in the same place is
Yeah.
sorry, just
No,
got a
you're
bit
good.
confused now.
No, you're good.
But yeah, you get what I mean.
Yeah, 100%. I do. Is there, so I know like obviously like the pain of staying same is greater, but do you feel like there's something in specific you don't really like about your current situation or
Um, I just I'd say the biggest thing is just I don't like my parents. I just feel like they're not really proud of me. They're not like they think I'm just kind of wasting my time a bit, you know?
what makes you say that?
I don't know. They just I don't really know. I can just kind of tell the way they talk to me and stuff, you know?
Do you still live with them?
Yeah, I do for now.
No, it's a good thing. It's a great financial decision.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I mean, like, why specifically do you feel like they're not proud of you? Like, is it just because of the way you live life, or?
Um, I'd say a little bit of that, but more just I don't know. They just want me to be like I don't really know. Just because like I took a couple of months off of work a
Mhm.
while ago, and like I was just kind of like traveling and having fun and stuff, and I feel like they kind of thought like that was a bit stupid. And I should just be try to like better my career and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So
No, that
yeah,
makes sense. I can try and see it from their perspective, but I know
yeah, I
them.
don't know.
But I mean, are you wanting to continue what you're doing for like another 6 months, I guess? Like, again, I'm just trying to see like if this is something you're wanting to do right now, just because obviously
Um,
with the way life is going for you right now, like if you were to do it for like 6 more months, like I guess how would that impact you?
I don't want to do it for 6 more months, you know.
I mean, it pays good. You could.
It does pay good. Like I will do it if I need to, but if any sort of opportunity arises for me to stop working that, then I would take it, you know,
Yeah.
because I think there's times more important. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. So do you feel like I guess entrepreneurship is the right thing for you and more specifically high ticket sales in terms of opportunity?
From what I know about it, yeah, yeah, I do feel that way.
Why specifically though? Just out of like curiosity.
Just really do we like the people skills and I don't know the kind of freedom to some extent of it.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
it's your own skills that determine how well you're doing it.
exactly. Exactly. So like do you feel like this situation you're kind of in right now, do you feel like it's something you need to change or something you kind of just like want to eventually fix?
I think it's something I need to change. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. But I mean like why though? You don't have to change
No, I don't have to change, but you know,
because a lot of people don't, you know?
I know. Yeah. Um, I just don't want to be one of those people though. You know, I want to make the change. Um,
Yeah. No, I definitely had the same mentality as you whenever I started. It just gets
yeah,
to a point where you're just sick of it. You know, you're
yeah,
just so sick of it and just like living life the way it's not meant to be lived, you know, and you see all these people that are successful at a young age and you kind of question yourself, you know, like what am I doing with my life? Like why is that not me?
yeah,
Um and I just want to preface this. It's all possible, genuinely. I used to work a job that paid me 13 an hour. Now I've done pretty well for myself with high ticket sales. I mean, I'd like to imagine that I
yeah,
have, but obviously there's still room to grow. I feel like that's for everyone as well. But, you know, whenever I did start, I was just so sick of trading my time for money and disappointing my parents just because I feel like I wasn't doing good enough and maybe comparing myself a little bit. To an extent, it's a bad thing and a good thing. Um,
yeah,
just to kind of motivate you to work, but you don't want to obsess over it and
yeah,
knock yourself down. You just need to realize, hey, you know, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to be. I need to get to that position. How am I going to get there? Instead of just saying,
yeah,
oh my God, this guy's miles ahead of me. Like I want to kill myself because I'm not making that amount of money. And when in reality,
yeah,
you haven't even tried to make that money. So what is the point in beating yourself up? You know what I mean?
yeah. Exactly. It is tough, but I think that's like it's the driving factor behind it. You know,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I mean, like, why are you wanting to do all this now, though? Like, why now?
just because I've got the time, honestly.
And how long do you feel like you would have the time for?
Um, I've got a good savings, and if it's something that I'm working on and something that I can see some progression with,
Mhm.
then I can afford to not go back to work for like months,
Yeah.
maybe even a year, you know, like
Mhm.
I've got my savings and if it is right, then I'm willing to like take the risk and,
Well, what
you
would make
know,
it right for you?
try my best at it. Um, it's tough. I mean, if it's something that something that I know I'm capable of.
Mhm. So like with the things you were telling me earlier about like wanting to become a people person, do you truly like if you had the right guidance, do you truly feel that you would be able to?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do, because I'm good at talking to people sometimes. It's just like, I don't know, I think it's sometimes like the new situations just kind of freaks me out and I just overthink things, but I've been really improving upon it lately.
Yeah. So when you say overthinking, is that just like everything or?
Um, don't know, just like it feels like I'm trying to like predict what people are thinking and like try to predict conversations and stuff. And I just need to learn to kind of go with it. You know what I mean?
Kinda. So when you say protect conversations, does that mean like prevent something bad from happening out of a conversation?
Yeah, yeah, like trying to predict
You're
what
trying to
they
be the
are.
mediator.
Yeah, yeah. Like try to, I don't know,
No, 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 no.
try to think from their point of view and
I,
try to like,
that is exactly how my mind operates, bro. I swear to God. I know,
yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Just
Mm,
because, with my family and everything, like, obviously, like, things aren't always like 110%. And just trying to be the mediator and understand things from both people's perspectives and kind of being the fence sitter and trying to help people
yeah,
out
yeah,
and make it
yeah.
all right. It's hard and it's taxing. So I definitely feel where you're coming from, on top of, all of the overthinking as well. And that was
Yeah.
honestly one of the biggest reasons why I didn't start, was just because I overthought everything. You know, excuse me. I thought success was due to luck. I thought only like think of it as like a lottery ticket and your name gets chosen, right? And you're successful. So I thought
Yeah.
it was just merely a statistic that you get chosen by chance. That was my biggest limiting belief.
Yeah.
But I think I made a video on this recently, and it was basically saying you need to do an unreasonable amount of work to where it wouldn't make sense if you weren't successful, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when push comes to shove and you're putting in all of the work, you're putting in the inputs, there's going to be something that comes out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like that is essentially what removed the overthinking part for me, was just realizing, hey, if I just stay consistent and I commit myself to this every single day, I may have these self-doubts like what if I'm not good enough? What if I can't talk to people? What if like all the negatives, like what if I fail? What if you succeed? What if you actually become that person you're talking about? What if you actually make that money that you're wanting to make, right? And I used to be such a pessimistic person, but when you flip your mindset to thinking abundantly rather than like sense of scarcity, everything changes. You look at everything as an opportunity instead of a failure and a reason as to why you should quit. And this kind
Yeah.
of tags along into the inputs, right? Whenever you're just thinking abundantly and you're doing the inputs every single day, you're going to see success. I promise. That's how the universe works. I don't mean to get like spiritual or whatever, but do you understand what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
No, I do. I totally get where you're coming from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sick, sick. I just wanted to preface that just because I know kind of like what you're going through. Um, I was in a very similar position to you whenever I was getting into high ticket sales. Speaking of which, are you pretty familiar with how it works? Like, do you know the difference between like a setter and a closer?
Yeah, I know the difference
Okay.
between those. Yeah.
And then are you familiar with like how much you could make from both?
Yeah, yeah. I think it might have been one of your videos you were saying about maybe around 3K a month for a setter and then sometimes like seven or more for closers, kinda.
Exactly. Right on the money, brother. Yep.
Yeah.
So like what with that in mind, like what's kind of the goal for you, income goal wise? Like what number specifically?
Well, I've not got a specific number, just as high as I can, probably. But you know, I'm willing to start wherever, it's not gonna be instant, I know that
Yeah.
much. So
Okay, if not a specific number, do you feel like there's a specific lifestyle that you're wanting? Or I guess like certain goals that you have with high ticket sales? Like make my
um
first 6K a month or something like that.
well
Like what would be the
yeah,
point to
yeah.
where you would just go into this full time and not have to go back to your job and be able to just give more time to your family and the people you care about while making more money doing this?
Honestly, I'd say around probably around 3K a month. I would be like thinking about quitting my job and just going full time on this because, you know, at that point I can sustain my lifestyle. You
Mm,
know what I mean? Just enough, honestly, enough to the point where I can sustain living
yeah,
and just try and improve upon it, you know?
yeah.
Because I want something, some sort of skill or something that I can build. Because I
Mm.
feel like recently with work, I've not even been learning. or
Yeah,
anything, you know? Just
exactly.
wasting my time.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Trust me.
Yeah.
But in terms of like building that skill, like what do you feel is like finally pushing you to go out there and try something, specifically high ticket sales?
Um, I'd say just I don't know, it's gone too far. I need to make a change now, and I've got the time to do it now. So yeah.
If you were to get over that hurdle, I guess of like taking the next step and taking the big step, do you feel like
Hmm.
you would be able to achieve that lifestyle you're kind of talking about? You may not be super materialistic, but just in the sense of um, having a cushion, I would say, like 3, 4K a month, right? Like
Yeah.
realizing, hey, I don't need to go work this job anymore. I can do this from wherever.
Hmm.
Um, I guess like what do you feel like life would kind of look like with that? Like how would
I
life
don't know. Just
change? Do you feel like you'd be in a much better headspace?
oh yeah, definitely. Like just having time to be able to like get my workouts in, get like I don't know, just being able to plan my own life. Whereas right now I'm just kind of being told, go here, do this, do that, you know.
Yeah,
Just being able to choose what I'm doing and how I'm spending my time
yeah,
and spend more time with the people I care about.
yeah. Do you feel like high ticket sales would allow you to do all that?
Um, I like to think so, yeah. And I know at least it would give me a lot more freedom than what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so of course you don't really know about how I could help you specifically and how you could actually get started.
Yeah.
Would you say you're more of like a visual learner by chance?
Um, yeah, probably. I'd
Okay.
say so.
Okay. So if I could show you a clear path to all that, you know, like not even making 10K a month, just trying to replace your income, having that stability that you're kind of looking for with the lifestyle, being able to give back to your parents and provide for other people that you hold close to you, like, would you be ready to run with it if I showed you a clear path to it?
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay, sick. I'm gonna throw on my screen share for you. I know
Okay.
I'm gonna be going over just a little bit. Actually, it's kind of a lot. That's why I want to literally show you it because if I'm just speaking it to you, you're probably gonna
Yeah.
forget some things because it's a lot at one time. So it's a lot easier if you can see it visually.
Okay. Yeah.
So let me throw this on for you real quick. Can you see this?
Yes, I think I can. Yeah, can see it now.
Okay. Okay, sweet. Yeah, so this is essentially like the entire program for high ticket sales. I don't know how much
Right.
George actually mentioned to you about this. Totally fine if he didn't. That's kind of where
Yeah.
I'm going to go into full detail about it. Now, I'm managing a little over 25 clients right now.
Right.
Majority are still setters, which is fine, and it's honestly very beneficial for you
Yeah.
just because you guys are all in the same boat. It's going to be super easy for you to wrap your head around the concepts because they've done it so many times and they're just going to tell you exactly what you need to do on top of me teaching you as well.
Okay. Yeah.
So essentially, like this is just like the hub for everything. The main page is just super simple. Like just watching this video, kind of showing you exactly how this all works. Because I know on Notion, not everyone's super familiar with Notion. I'm gonna assume you are not.
I'm not, no.
Yeah. So sometimes it's a little complicated and it's hard on the eyes to navigate at first. That's kind of what the video is for, so you're not like stuck or confused.
Right.
I have two communities, so I have a private community and a public community. So the public community is on Discord, of course. There's probably like 400 people in there. And then
Right.
the private Slack's got like I think around like 30 of my clients right now. That's how I communicate with all of you guys personally, just because I
Okay.
get so many DMs on Instagram. Don't even waste your time DMing me on Instagram. Like just text me or message me on Slack.
Right. Okay.
Um, and then one of the first things that we're going to do is the onboarding call. So really what that is just going over just the basics, right? We're going to be going over, I guess, like a couple goals that you may have, like a 3 month goal, 6 month goal, kind of like what your schedule looks like, so we can work around that because I want to make the most of our time together. So I want to ensure that you're showing up to everything, and time constraints on a thing. So just
Yeah.
figuring out what your schedule is so we can work around it. And then essentially reverse engineering those goals that we were kind of talking about and saying, hey, how many hours do we need to dedicate to this per day? And what do we need to be doing specifically input wise to actually get to those goals? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. And then typically for you, we do group calls twice a week. We're planning on bumping it to 3 times a week. These times will vary a lot. Like these are not set in stone whatsoever. If for whatever reason you cannot make the group call, like let's say you're sick as a dog one day and you can't make it, Every single group call
Yep.
is recorded. There are plenty in here already, which I'm going to get into in just a second, that you can go ahead and watch, take notes on, which I'd highly recommend you do because there's a lot of stuff we go over in them.
Okay.
Just because it would benefit you a lot in that learning curve of learning how to actually sell and become a people person and learn how to communicate better is going to be um, cut exponentially. You're just going to learn a lot faster.
Okay.
And then I know everyone learns a little bit differently, so I have like a little surveys and personalization worksheet that I have you guys do off the rip, just so I can see how I can coach you best. Just because I know everyone learns a little bit differently, everyone retains information a little bit differently, so I try and tailor the experience to each individual client. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that makes sense.
sweet. So now I'm going to go into the core modules. So this is really just like the bulk of the entire program. I also want to mention that this program typically lasts for around 4 months. Now, that being said, you have lifetime access to everything, including me. That's just typically like how long it takes, around 4 months. I've seen people do it in 3. I've seen people do it in a little over 4. Just kind of depends how much time you're dedicating towards this per day, just because I know everyone has obligations. But again, it just comes down to how fast you want to succeed, what sacrifices are you wanting to make,
Yeah.
and how to go from there. That's what the onboarding call is for, and that's why it's so important, is so you can actively have, um, I guess, an easier way to see how to achieve your goals, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, typically within, I know this is kind of a lot to look at. I'm going to try and simplify it as best I can. So, whenever you guys start, you're going to obviously start as a setter, right? Because it's very hard to go straight into closing, especially if you have no prior sales experience. So setting is almost like the foundation of all this. So like you have DM setting and phone setting. Essentially, all these modules will cover exactly how to do that. All the trackers you could ever need. Like if I go and click on one of these, there's like six pre-recorded videos. Everything's pre-recorded. Highly recommend you take notes on everything. Super beneficial.
Okay.
And the brilliant thing about like this timeline is while you're learning setting, you're going to be placed on an offer. Now, typically, like most clients will be on an offer within 1 month. I've seen it happen in a week. I've literally gotten one of my clients, Nathan. I had him on 2 fitness offers within the same agency within I think 6 days of him working with
Right,
me.
okay.
But he was really locked in. Like he was working at this every single day. He got his Loom video sent to me, like literally within a few days, and I instantly started sending him offers. So I just want to guarantee that placement because it is there. But I need you to do a
Yeah.
few things in order to actually get on that offer because I don't want to just throw you on an offer and then you get fired because you don't know what the hell you're doing. Right? Obviously, that's like
Yeah.
why I'm here and why this is there, so that way you understand how this all works, and you go into it with full confidence and you just hit the ground running. Now, I know I mentioned the word loom. Are you familiar with what a loom is?
Yeah, yeah. I've heard
Yeah.
you speak about it.
So essentially, the loom is almost like an elevator pitch for these offer owners. It's going to be your main way, or I guess your first impression to these people when it comes to getting hired. So typically, people used to do resumes. I have a really nice one attached here for you if you need to use it for whatever reason. But typically,
Okay.
you're going to make a Loom video. It's like a 2-minute video going over who you are, what your experience is, why you should be hired, why you're better than everyone else, pretty much.
Yeah.
Now, there's like an entire framework that I have here that you can go through. One of my mentors that I used to get mentored by whenever I started has a video on how to make a good Loom. Then there are just a lot of client examples here that I'd highly recommend you watch. Cool.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect.
All right, sweet. And then like the group calls that I was mentioning, they're all recorded here. I think there's probably like 5 more I got to throw in here, but I would highly recommend you watch all of them. And then on top of that, there are some sales calls that I've taken for the offer that I'm on. I have yet to upload all of them in here because they're recorded with OBS. Like you can see, this one is recorded with OBS. This one's with Fathom. Fathom is
Yeah.
really, really easy to put straight in here, but whenever I have to upload OBS, it takes like 30 minutes to upload something in here. For I don't even know why. God knows why.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got like 15 more I got to put in here. But I'd highly recommend you
Right.
watch these. Like this is a $7,500 close on a one call.
Yeah.
Um, so I would highly recommend you check that out for sure. Now, something that I
Right.
added
Okay.
really recently is the fully customized AI sales bot, and this is going to be really beneficial for setting just because it walks you through exactly how to DM set somebody. You can pick a niche, you can pick a difficulty. So, like, let's say you're very familiar with day trading, right? You love day trading, and
Yeah.
obviously you're doing high ticket sales. You could go and sell for a day trading offer. Like, let's say you do it on the side, you're very familiar with how the model works, you know all the terminology, you know everything about it, right? So, you're essentially going to sell something that you already know. And a great way to practice this is with the bot. So, essentially, what you'd be doing going in there, let's say you're not a very good DM setter. Let's say like you're just starting out, which is
Yeah.
totally fine. You're going to select the easy difficulty, and then you're going to select the day trading niche. So from there on, you're trying to set an appointment with a random persona that this bot is giving you, and just
Right.
working your way down the framework to ultimately getting them to book a call. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, yeah, that does
Okay.
sound good.
And then at the end of it, it's awesome because it rates you on a scale of 0 to 100, almost like a test, like a high school test or something like that. And
Yeah.
it'll tell you exactly what you did a great job of, things you didn't do a great job of, personalized feedback, how you can get better. This is honestly going to be one of the fastest ways you can get really good at DM setting, aside from learning from me on the coaching calls.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend you abuse this thing.
Yeah,
Highly
that does
recommend it.
sound that sounds beneficial.
Yeah. And then if for whatever reason you're wanting to get into personal branding, I have a bunch of stuff here for you as well. You could look into that. It's how to post content, blah blah blah. You don't have to do that. It's just there for your personal benefit because I know some people have an interest in that. So I figured,
Yeah.
why not help people make content, right?
Yeah.
And then honestly, like the latter half of the program is going to be closing, of course. So once you're on and off for making money, you understand how the fundamentals work. You've kind of completed the first half. You've watched a lot of the group calls. You've been on a lot of the group calls. And to transition you into closing. So that's what all these modules are for. And essentially, it's
Okay.
just going to be closing is an extension of setting. So it's not complicated. But if you try and go straight into closing, it's not going to make a lot of sense. But whenever you've learned setting, you've mastered it. Closing is essentially just an extension of setting. It's just a
Right,
longer
okay.
process, but it's like the same kind of formula, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it for the modules. Now, I have a ton of resources here for you as well, like PDF on psychological buying triggers, routines, battle cards, trackers, scripts, resources, optimizations, everything you could need. And this is one of the first things I'm going to have you do. It's called the vision board. I used to read mine every single day. Keeps you committed,
Okay.
locked in, focused. You understand kind of why you're doing all this, and especially on the hard days, it's really beneficial because it
Yeah.
helps you stay grounded and understand where you're coming from. And then there's just like a live DM walkthrough video, setter dashboard for your niches in case you're not familiar with certain models, mindset, literally everything you can need.
Yeah.
Now, I know that was a lot at one time. I hope you kind of retained at least a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Um, but I do want to ask, like, where's your head at with all this? Like on a scale of 1 out of 10.
Um, I'd say 9 out of 10. I'm really interested, honestly.
Okay. Do you feel like it would allow you to reach those goals that you were kind of talking about? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
retaining, what did we say? Like 3, 4K a month, which is
Yeah.
achievable setting alone
Yeah.
easily, right? Like most OTEs are around like at least 3K a month. So
Okay.
it's just a matter of taking that next step, committing yourself towards this and working at it every single day in order to actually get to those goals. Because it's all
Yeah.
possible. Like me, myself, I'm living proof of it. And that's why I make content. That's why I help people. It's because I came from nothing. I had no money and I just committed myself to it every single day. And now I'm here to
Yeah.
just help you guys do the same. The only thing I need from you is a commitment, right? And understanding, hey, this is what I need to do and actually to get to my goals. I don't want to stay in the same spot that I'm in right now. I need to make that change. I want to make that change because staying stuck, staying where I'm at right now is way more painful than, doing something like this, committing yourself to it and working at it every single day. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Makes perfect sense.
Okay, cool. So if everything made sense and like you said, this would truly help you get to your goals, like do you feel like there'd be anything stopping you from, I guess, moving forward or I guess like committing to this?
Um, no, nothing I can think of.
Okay. All right, sweet, James. Well, I don't really have too much else to go over. Um,
Yeah.
but like the entire program, 4 month lifetime access, guaranteed placement, access to my clients, me, everything we were kind of talking about to get to those goals is just a one-time payment of 3K.
3K. Okay. Well, I would need to think it over, but I'm very interested.
Okay. Yeah, not for sure,
Okay.
man. I'm just here to give you all the info that you need. Um, in terms of looking over things and kind of like taking a step back, what is it specifically, I guess, that you're wanting to like think over just a little bit?
Um, I don't know. 3K is a lot of money, so
Hmm.
I wouldn't want to just jump at it without thinking it through a bit first.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's just the price tag, or do you feel like money aside, do you feel like the program could genuinely get to you or get you to those goals that you're kind of talking about?
Yeah, I do think so.
Okay, so do you feel like the cost of the program is more than the cost of where you are now and not moving at all, or would you say it's vice versa?
Um, no, I'd say that is worth the cost.
Because
It's
here's the
just
thing. I totally understand. Like I was literally on the other end of this call whenever I got mentored. I was very
Yeah.
fearful. I was scared. And I was hesitant to commit, even though I told him I was like, yeah, I'm ready. Like I don't really want to stay like where I'm at right now. But whenever he kind of told me how much this was going to cost me, like it kind of shocked me. I was like, that's a lot of
Yeah.
money, right? And I just came to realize that, hey, first things first, right? If I don't invest in myself, I don't commit, am I actually going to change and become that version of myself who is making the amount of money that I want to make and who's providing for my parents and making them proud, right? Because yeah,
Yeah.
it was a pretty big dent and it was scary. I didn't know what was going to happen. But the only comfort that I needed was realizing, hey, if I do this, if I commit myself to this, and I work at it every single day, there isn't a reason why I wouldn't like succeed, right? Because I have somebody helping me every step of the way, and that's exactly what I'm here for. Because I'm just here to make it make sense for you, genuinely. Because I see like
Yeah.
where you're at in life and what you want to do, and like, how you want sales to change your life, and allow you to become that person that you want to become, like that extroverted person, or the person who can talk to people, make this amount of money, not be, mentally and physically drained by his job, and, go out and actually change the world and, provide for people that he loves. And like that was the same thing for me. So
Yeah.
I don't want to let the price get in the way of this. So do you feel if we could maybe like split it up, like we could do like half now. So like instead of you doing 3K in full, which is typically like what
Yeah.
most people will do, right? But if we just split it half now, half later, like let's say we did 1,500 now, and then like in a month when you're a little bit more comfortable, you're already making money, you can pay the other 1,500 off. Do you think that would make more sense?
Yeah. I think that'd help a lot
Oh,
because price is just quite a shock. You know what I mean?
yeah, no, 100%. It's it's a shock to everyone for sure. Like my job here is just to help you get your foot in the door, get committed instead of hesitating and staying in the same spot. Because unfortunately, a lot of people do. So, like, my goal is not to make as much money as I can. I already make good money. It's not about the money for me, right? It's more about genuinely
Yeah.
helping people just because I don't want you to stay stuck. I don't want you to continue living the life the way you're living it just because of everything you kind of told me. Obviously, I didn't have the same exact experience, but I
Yeah.
know exactly where you're coming from. And the last thing I want you to do is hesitate. So, like with that being said, do you feel that 1,500 today would make more sense and actually get you started today rather than just paying it in full?
Yeah. Yeah. I do think so.
Okay, and that's something that will work for you today.
Yeah. I can do that.
All right, sweet. Let's do it, man.
Okay.
I'm
Perfect.
gonna get some stuff sorted on my end. Could you just do me a quick favor? Could you type your email? Okay, so now we're going to be covering body language, tonality, and more. And these are going to be the invisible mechanics that separate average reps from the top people in this space. So, tonality, body language, verbal cueing, mirroring, personality handling, and any and all psychological frameworks that make everything else in your script actually work is exactly what we're going to be covering because it's not just what you say, right? It's how you say it. So this matters a lot because communication is made up of three main things: tonality, body language, and words. Tonality being 45%, body language being another 45, and words being around 10%. So what you actually say doesn't even matter that much. The other 90% is split between tonality and body language. This is why somebody can read the perfect script and still not close the deal because it's not really going to be a one size fits all. And this is why somebody with some basic framework is going to beat that guy 10 times out of 10 because they have the right delivery and it's not really about what they're saying specifically because the script is going to give you words, right? But this section is going to give you everything else that you need. So the first 4 seconds are very, very important. Whenever you even open your mouth in the call, you roughly have 4 seconds to establish three things. One, you're as sharp as a tack. So alert, on the ball, present, you're not distracted, you're not half asleep, make sure you're caffeinated, good to go, and you don't sound like a robot. Number two, enthusiastic. So you're not over the top. You don't want to be like crazy, like you're throwing a party in the background on your webcam. You want to have more of like a controlled enthusiasm just below the surface, right? So a subtle urgency in your voice that says, oh, this is going to be good, right? The prospect's like, all right, I bet I'm ready. And last but certainly not least is you want to be an expert in your field. Majority of people want to work with experts. I don't know a single person who wants to work with somebody who has no idea what they're doing. They don't sound like they know what they're doing. They're not confident in themselves. So it's really important that you are the authority on the call. You're the professional. You're not amateur. You know exactly what you're doing and how you can help this person. And you can't establish any of these things that I just mentioned with words alone in 4 seconds. It comes across through mainly how you sound and how you carry yourself. And that's why tonality and body language are so, so important and matter a lot more than people really realize. So first thing we're going to be covering is body language. Your body is going to be the remote control for your tone. You can see I'm literally using my hands right now. That's a great example of body language. And here's one of the most important things to understand about it. It's not about just something the prospect sees, it's about the remote control to your tonality. It's going to unlock that, it's going to guide it, because whenever your body language shifts, your tone is going to shift automatically with it, right? Because if I move my hands like this or if I go down, you can see like if you tilt your head or you squint your eyes a little bit, your voice will naturally become a little bit more curious. You know what I mean? Like I literally just did it right there. And if you lean back, you kind of scrunch your eyebrows, you're going to sound a little skeptical. I'm literally sounding skeptical. So mastering body language is really the first step to mastering tonality. They're all connected in a way. Now, there are two very important non-negotiables that you should always be doing whenever you're selling. Number one, shoulders back, chest open, exactly like this. Keep your vital organs exposed, and this is going to be single-handedly the easiest way to appear more confident and casual on a Zoom call or even a phone call, even if they can't even see you. Same effect applies. And number two is going to be keeping your hands visible at all times. Literally just like this. When your hands are hidden, like they're in your pockets or under the desk, you can't even see my hands. You can see it creates a little bit of tension, right? I don't feel as confident. I'm more shrunk down. And it's not that they think that you're a threat. It's the subtle, instinctive discomfort whenever you're keeping your hands down like this. Like I'm kind of, you see the difference immediately. Like if I'm speaking like this with my hands open, my chest out, chest exposed, versus like if I'm kind of shrink down like this. I'm feeling a little bit more cautious. You can see it kind of gives this like little tension, unconfident energy that you don't want at all. Now, when it comes to various different body language positions, there are typically 4 of them that we use. Number 1 is going to be casual. So if you have a casual tone, your shoulders are going to be back, your chest is going to be open, your hands are going to be visible. You're very relaxed, right? What this essentially communicates is that you're a confident person. You don't need this person's money. They don't need you. You're here to help them and you are a professional. Number 2 is going to be curious. So, tilting your head a little bit, squinting your eyes a little slightly. Tell me more. Like, how can I help you? Why has that been a problem? I'm genuinely interested in what you're saying. Like, you can just feel it and see it, my demeanor and my energy. Third is going to be skeptical. So this is more so like leaning back, scrunching your eyebrows a little bit like this. And you can see, like, again, my tone is automatically changing. And it's like, wait, really? That doesn't sound right. Like, it makes them feel like what they're doing now is not good enough or something along the lines of that. And last but not least is concern. So now that you know all the various different positions, the non-negotiables, here's how you're really going to use each of these positions. So whenever you're in the opening phase or the initial intent phase of the call, you're going to be using the curious and casual tone. You're getting to know them, you're relaxed and engaged. Then when you get to the discovery or the root cause or problem or anything like that, you're still going to be using the same exact tone. You're still gathering the information, stay neutral, stay open, you're still digging a little bit. Then you're really going to start digging into their problems. This is where you're going to be a little skeptical. You're going to be like, oh, curious. And you're going to make them realize that what they're doing isn't working. And this is really where you're going to be pulling a lot of the real answers. Then obviously pain and emotional expansion. So you're going to be a little bit concerned, hand to the chest, like eyebrows up. You're showing empathy. You're leaning in, letting them feel that you genuinely care. Next, pre-handling and what shifted. You're going to be more so curious and skeptical because you're challenging them slightly. You're making them come to your rescue. You know what I mean? Then you have future pacing, obviously the positive one first. Curious and upward inflections. You're speaking up, speaking with positive emotion, right? Making them sound excited, making them get that dopamine hit that they need to actually, take action. Then on the reverse, you have future pacing negative. So this is going to be more so still concerned, but this time it's downward. This time it's down where you're dropping the energy. You're going from the highest high of the roller coaster to the lowest point. You're really wanting to make the conversation feel real and heavy. Then, of course, for the pitch, casual, confident. You don't really want to do anything crazy here. Just relax, be yourself, be confident. So now that you've understood a little bit more about body language, now we're going to go into depth on tonality. So how you say it is going to matter more than what you're saying. Tonality is honestly the single most powerful tool that you have on a sales call, even if you're just setting and you can't see the person. Whenever you speak with the right tonality, you're forcing the prospect to unconsciously or subconsciously, for the matter, engage with what you are really saying to them. Because without it, they're just going to be drifting into their own thoughts. With it though, they're going to lock in. They're going to, try to give meaning to your words. It's going to give you a lot of control over the actual conversation. So there are really 4 core tonalities that you're going to be using, very similar to the body language, and these are going to match directly with the positions that we just covered. So remember, body language is the remote control. Shift your body and your tone is automatically going to follow. So number 1, again, just casual. This is your home base, like I mentioned earlier. Relaxed, confident, in control. You don't sound like you need the sale. You're more confident in yourself and the ability for the program to actually help the prospect. You sound like a professional. You're here to help them. This is where you're going to spend majority of the call, especially during the opening and the pitch. So really important. Number 2, curious. Again, same exact thing. Engaged, interested, leaning in mentally. You're genuinely trying to understand this person's problems. You're not just asking questions for the sake of asking questions to move closer to the sale. This is your primary tone that you're going to be using during discovery and probing. And it's also going to pair with upward inflections during positive future pacing to really build that excitement within the prospect. So, what do you mean by that? We see what I just did there. Eyes squinted, head tilted, and I asked a simple question. Third is skepticism or skeptical, challenging, slightly disbelieving. This tone is going to make the prospect feel like what they are currently doing is not good enough. Again, same exact thing with tone and body language. And it's really going to trigger them to come to your rescue and explain exactly why they need your help. Use it whenever you're digging into problems, and use it also during the pre-handling phase. So only 3 leads a month. Why so low? Like lean back, eyes scrunched a little bit. You're kind of taken aback. You're like, wow, that's a shocker. Why is it so low? And again, lastly, being concerned. So empathetic, soft, caring. This is the tone that is really going to build deep trust with the prospects and give you a lot of rapport. So whenever they share something painful, you lean in, you raise your eyebrows, you let that voice drop to something a little bit warm, and you're going to be using this during the pain building section and the negative future pacing. So, I'm sorry to hear that, man. Hand against the chest, eyebrows are a little bit raised. I mean, something along the lines of what I just did. But yeah. Inflections. So this is going to be an add-on to your tonality. This is really what's going to take it to the next level, because once you have the 4 core tonalities down, the next step is just going to be mastering inflections. And essentially, an inflection is the direction that your voice moves at the end of a phrase. So an upward inflection or a downward inflection. And this is really going to be how you manipulate the emotional energy of the conversation to your liking. So upward inflections, they're going to create positive emotion. They're going to be used during positive future pacing, and your voice is going to rise at the end of phrases, right? So who would you like to take on that vacation, right? Voice lifts. And obviously with the reverse, downward inflections, you're creating negative emotion. You're going to use this during the negative future pacing, and your voice is going to drop at the end of phrases. And what would happen then, right? So downwards, heavy, voice drops. Think of it like this. Whenever they're telling you about their dream life, your verbal cues should lift. It should make them feel emotionally uplifted and actually passionate about it. Then when they're telling you about their pain and consequences, your cues should drop to the floor. You want to match that emotional direction of the conversation, and it's going to amplify genuinely energy, what they are feeling in the current moment. That's why this is so important. Now, something called the wave principle. Think of your emotion like 2 sound waves. So if 2 sound waves travel at the different, and this is really where the wave principle is going to come into play. So think of emotion like 2 sound waves. If 2 waves travel at different frequencies and collide, they're going to cancel each other out, and they're essentially just going to go flat, right? And that's what happens when your tone doesn't match the prospect's emotional state. There's no emotion, there's no urgency. But if the 2 waves are traveling at the same frequency and they collide, they're going to double in size. So this is what happens when you mirror their emotional state with your inflections, like we just talked about. Their positive emotion gets even higher. Their negative emotion is going to be even deeper. You're essentially amplifying what they already feel. Section 3 is going to be more so about verbal cueing and pacing, and this is going to be how you're going to control the pace and emotion of the conversation. So verbal cueing is essentially how you control the speed and emotional direction of a prospect's speech without them even realizing it. And honestly, it's only built upon the principle of mirroring. So whenever you change your pacing and energy, right, the prospect is essentially going to adjust or, match to you. So the first step to doing this is choosing your filler words. So I want you to pick 5 filler words or phrases that you naturally use while listening. These are going to be the sounds you make while the prospect's talking to signal that you're actually engaged. Like, yeah, oh, really? Okay, that makes sense. Right. Things like that. These are going to be your tools. You're really going to alternate between all of these different ones at different speeds and inflections to kind of steer the prospect in the right direction. Step 2 is going to be controlling the speed. So if you want somebody to speed up or wrap up whatever they're saying, use your filler words quickly, close together. Like if I'm having a conversation with you and I'm speaking very, very quickly and I ask you a question, you're probably going to answer that question very fast. But if I want you to slow down, I want you to go deeper, I'm going to use filler words more slowly. I'm going to speak more slowly with more space in between them. Then you're going to be matching my speed and my pacing, and you're going to respond a little bit slower. Step 3 is going to be controlling your emotions. So same exact filler words, but now you layer inflections on top of them. So for positive future pacing, use upward wispy inflections on your verbal cue. So really that's amazing. I love that. Your voice is going to lift. It's going to amplify that emotion that they're kind of giving you right now. And the same goes for the opposite with negative future pacing or, consequences. You're going to use that downward heavier inflection. Oh, really? I'm sorry to hear that, man. Like that makes a lot of sense. your voice is going to drop. It's going to deepen the weight of their pain. But always remember that wave principle that I just talked about. Your emotional frequency has to match theirs, because when it does, that motion is going to double. When it doesn't, it's not going to do any good for you at all. Next, we're going to be talking about mirroring. So this applies to any and all sales as a whole. And the best way that I like to describe this section is just by being a chameleon. And mirroring somebody is one of the most natural human behaviors. Like sometimes it just happens automatically, because like if two people are in rapport, they're going to start copying each other without even realizing it. So think of like a couple on their first date at a restaurant. At the beginning, it's kind of awkward, different postures, different energy. There's not really a lot of sync or, rapport, like I said. But once it clicks, then you're going to notice them start leaning in at the same time. They're going to gesture the same way. They're going to match each other's tempo. That is the definition of rapport. That is mirroring, and that is something that you could do intentionally on a sales call. So what exactly would you actually mirror? So first one's going to be energy level. If they're calm, if they're reserved, match it. So if they're more, nonchalant, maybe you can just be, nonchalant as well. You lower your tone a little bit, kind of like this. But if they're high energy, they're excited, they're doing all these things, match it. Have that enthusiasm and be the same as them. But definitely don't be a hyped up, enthusiastic salesperson whenever they're clearly a mellow person. They're more low key. Like I said, you want to match that. You also want to mirror the speaking pace. So fast talkers want fast responses, and slow, deliberate talkers want space. Match that rhythm. Also, body language, very important. If they lean in, you lean in as well. If they cross their arms, do the exact same thing. And if they gesture a lot, try to be a little bit more animated. And last but not least, tone. If they're serious, be very serious. If they're joking around, obviously joke around. Read the room, get into it, match that energy. And this matters a lot because when you're not mirroring, there's always going to be that disconnect. There's never going to be that click. That rapport is never going to be there. The prospect is essentially always going to feel like you're not on the same wavelength. And there's going to be a lot of tension. It's going to be static. And odds are it's going to be harder for you to close the deal because they're not going to open up to somebody that they don't feel connected to. That's why mirroring is so important, because it eliminates that friction. It builds that rapport at a subconscious level in their minds and makes the prospect feel like you genuinely understand them, you genuinely get them. And being a chameleon doesn't mean being fake at all. It means just simply adapting to your scenario and your communication style to match the other person where they are at. A great salesperson will always understand this. They can talk to a reserved introvert and a loud extrovert and make both feel equally understood. So we talked about mirroring. Now I'm going to show you how to mirror questions, how to get the answers that you actually need out of a sales call to close the prospect. Even with perfect tonality, perfect body language, you're still going to run into situations where the prospect does not give you the answer that you need. No matter what you do, no matter how good of a salesman that you are, they're either going to dodge the question, they're not going to understand, they're going to be confused, or they're going to give you some non-vague answer that really doesn't help you at all. That's whenever you're going to start to use the mirror. And you can do this with a simple two-step process. So the first one is obviously calling that out, right? If somebody doesn't give you the answer that you want, or they're very short, abrupt, very surface level, they're going to keep doing that for the rest of the call unless something changes, because obviously you did not get what you were asking for. Say, no, sorry, that's not what I quite meant. Maybe I wasn't being clear enough. Ask it again, ask for more detail. And that leads to step 2, which is asking the same question in a different way. So you still need them to answer, right? But if you repeat the same question word for word, it's going to feel like you're treating them like a child. It's going to be like a slap on the face. And they don't want that. So instead, you want to rephrase it so it feels like a new question. Even though it's literally the same exact thing, it's going to get you the same information. It's just said a little bit differently, phrased a little bit differently, so they don't even see it. Another important category is personality types. On every single sales call, the prospect is always going to fall somewhere on the spectrum of confidence. And on one end, you have the alpha personality. They're overly confident. They have this huge, massive ego. They don't need any help at all. They talk down to you. They hold your frame. Or on the other end, you have like the beta personality. There's not really a lot of confidence. They're kind of defeated. They're a wuss. They don't really trust themselves to even make a decision at all. And honestly, both of these ends of the spectrum are really bad for closing. But there is a buying pocket in the middle where they're going to have enough confidence to make the decision, but enough awareness to know that they need help. And that's the sweet spot. So in order to get somebody in the buying pocket, it's going to be your job to move the prospect into the buying pocket. So if they're a beta, obviously building them up, giving them the confidence, or if they're an alpha, you want to bring them down a little bit. But either way, point is you're guiding them towards the middle so that they can actually get closed. So if you were talking to a beta type, you would use identity framing to build them up and reinforce the fact that this is who they are at their best, and that's the kind of decision that they want to make if they actually want to get there. Or if you're talking to an alpha, you want to use deflation techniques and make them realize that they're not as far along as they thought and that they actually need help. There's actually a gap that you're here to solve. So to get into more specifics, if you're talking to a beta prospect and they believe that their identity is a certain kind of person, like a great father or a courageous individual or a successful or serious business owner, they're going to start acting like that person, or they will start acting like that person. And it's your job to reflect that identity back on them. So here's a simple formula that you can use. You would say something like, oh yeah, kudos to you for being insert positive identity, because a lot of people, they're really just negative behavior insert, and nothing actually ever changes because of that, right? So kudos to you for actually, and then repeat yourself again with the positive action that they actually took. So there are also a couple more examples that I've listed that you can also use that will have the exact same effect, just depending on the certain situation. Now, for deflating an alpha, you can really deflate them in seconds if you do it the right way. And by far the most effective technique that I've come across is by misquoting a number or statistic that they gave you with a bigger one, as if you're used to working with people who are miles ahead of them. They're at a much higher level, because when they correct you, they're deflating it themselves, because they now know and realize how small of a fish they really are. They're not a big one. They're not who they thought they were. And another approach is whenever they give you that number that they're proud of, respond with a skeptical tone. Okay, well, only that number? Why so low? This is immediately going to reset their expectation as to where they should be, and it's going to shift the entire dynamic. And they're going to go from talking down to looking up, because they realize how far behind they really are. Next section is going to be building rapport. Now, this is very, very, very important. If you can't build rapport with the prospect, you have no rapport, your sales call is not going to be great. You have no foundation to stand on. And this section is really about the LLTTB formula, the like, listen, teach, trust, buy formula. This is something that you really need to follow, and something that I was personally taught door to door that got me a lot of sales and made me a lot of money, not only in that industry, but also in this industry as well. So rapport is the foundation. No, there's no getting around that. Without it, your tonality doesn't land, your body language doesn't connect with the prospect, and your questions, they're going to feel like an interrogation. They're really just going to turn off the buyer entirely. So your rapport is basically built on two things that the prospect has to feel in their gut no matter what. Number one is going to be, this person genuinely cares about me. And the other is going to be, this person is just like me. So they're going to feel that in your tone, facial expressions, your words, and there's that connection, that commonality, and they're actually going to feel understood. So again, the LLTTB framework. This is the psychological sequence that every single prospect moves through before they actually buy something. And if you skip this step, or you don't do it the right way, it's not going to work the way you want it to. So first step, obviously, like, they're going to decide if they like you as a person. So this is how you're going to be able to, break the ice, build rapport, be human. You're actually going to treat them like you've known them, right? They're going to get a feel for you. They're going to connect with you. Then listen. So they're actually going to now pay attention, because of that, to what you say. So because they like you, now they're engaged. Now their guard is down. Then teach. So now you're going to be able to demonstrate the expertise that they don't have and that they want. So now you can really ask the questions that they don't know the answer to, and you're going to teach them something. You're going to position yourself as an authority, as an expert, as a professional. Then once you've done all these things, now they trust you. Now they view you as the expert, and they're going to trust your guidance no matter what. They like you, they listen, and you know things that they don't. That's why that trust is just going to come naturally. Then after all of those things, they're going to be ready to move forward, because once the trust is established, saying yes for them is just honestly going to be a natural conclusion if they see the value and they want to pull that trigger on actually getting started, because no is going to be dumb. It's going to sound dumb if they say no to you. If you do everything correctly and in order here, the prospect is not going to say no to you. I've had very, very, very few instances while taking sales calls when this has actually happened while using this framework. It never happens. And that is always the goal in a sales call, is making no sound dumb. You want to make them sound dumb for saying no, because then it just becomes a matter of handling fear, getting them over that, and then just getting them started. Now, I know we've covered a lot in this section, but all of it's very important. So here's a quick reference, everything in a glance on what you need to know about body language, tonality, all the little bits and bobs, golden nuggets, and underlying things that are going to make you really, really good at sales, specifically high ticket sales. And if you honestly think that this is something that you would crush at, you want to leverage communication skills, you want to start making money online with a skill set, in my private community, we actually go very hands-on with the training. Links down below, you can apply there. All right, so very, very important. This is the bread and butter. If you want to get good at one thing, if you sold the bag in the sales call, it's going to be objection handling. Now, this is going to cover exactly how objections work, why they're even given to you, and the exact system that you can use to convert any objection into one that you want to handle, so that way you can stay in control of the conversation. You can still lead it towards the close after reframing, giving them an analogy, or even identity shifting all the way up until you close the prospect. So let's get into it. So where exactly do objections come from? Why do they exist? Well, before you can even handle an objection, because we'll get there in a second, you need to understand what they actually are. An objection is not the prospect telling you no. It's not saying, I don't want to buy this. It's more so coming from a place of not wanting to do it and giving you a reason why not. It's the prospect telling you that they're not fully convinced. It's something that is still unresolved in their mind. And about 90% of the time, What they tell you is not even the real reason. We call it a smoke screen. And they're going to say one thing, but the real blocker is honestly going to be something else entirely. But it'll always come down to a select few of things, which we'll get into in a second. And every single objection that you will ever hear on a sales call is going to fall into one of these three categories. So fear, logistics, or money. Fear, what it really is and what it comes down to is that they're just simply too scared to take the leap. They're like, what if I fail? What if this happens? All the self-doubt kind of creeps in when they realize they actually have to pull the trigger for the first time. It's that lack of self-belief. It's whatever they're telling themselves, the fear of the unknown, whatever it may be, they're too scared to take that next step to get them to where they want to be. Logistics, this one is really just more so a practical barrier. It's a little easier to deal with. Sometimes it's not easy to deal with at all, but majority of the time, if it's money, a little easier, time, a little easier. But if somebody else is involved in the equation, that's where it kind of gets a little bit hairy. Now, with money, this is by far the simplest to solve. Often it's just a matter of implementing a payment plan into the structure or getting somebody on financing, not their actual inability to pay, because they can pay. It's more so just about making it make sense. Now, there's always one golden rule of objection handling, and I want you to remember this very well. Most salespeople, whatever kind of sales that you're in, will always make the mistake of trying to handle whatever the objection the prospect hands them. So the surface level or the smoke screen. Now, there's always going to be a system to how the objection flow will work, no matter like what the starting point is or what the objection is that they give you. No matter what it is, the first move is always going to be the same, and it's always going to be to push to money, because you don't want that to be a problem later and cause more tension, maybe even potentially losing the sale if you don't handle it now. So here's why this is important. Every single objection that you get on every call, whether it's time, partner, fear, whatever BS excuse they give you, has some relationship to money. Always. If the program was free, they would do it 100% of the time. They would not need to think about it. They see the value in it. They wouldn't need to go ask their partner. They wouldn't need to do any of that. There's always going to be that money component involved, because like that thing is really the driving factor, or either the reason why they do or do not do it. So you really need to clear that first, because once money and value are off the table, it's just simply a matter of finding out what the root issue is. And it becomes much easier to address because you're not confused and trying to find out what is actually wrong. And odds are they might even lie to you, right? So it's not just their mind looking for an exit. And the flow for this is very simple. It's only 4 parts. And the first thing that you're going to want to do is clear the money and value. You want to remove that financial objection out of the equation, or, at least create some sort of payment structure if need be. And you can do that by initially confirming that they see the value in what they're about to invest into. So, okay, prospect, after everything that we kind of covered on this call, program, what it entails, what that kind of looks like, and how it'll benefit you and get you to your goals, do you actually see the value in this? Then you're kind of clearing that money and value side out. Once they see the value, then you're going to handle the logistics side of things. So like if it's a time issue or like some sort of partner is in the equation, you want to address it with the reframe, and you want to get them to take ownership, because it is their responsibility for where they are and where they want to be and what they want to do with their life. After that's handled, then you go into fear. This is a big one. You want to convert their fear objection into a certainty, or they're certain that they can actually do this using an agreement statement. And then you're going to run into your reframes. I'll get into all these things in a second, but just general flow idea. Number 4 is going to be apologize or close. After you have done up to 4 reframes, they're either going to buy, or you're just going to straight up end the call respectfully and just pipeline them. Maybe follow up later down the line. So clearing the money and value. This is where you're going to want to start every single time, no matter what is thrown at you ever. Whatever they say first, your initial response should be to isolate the money and make sure that they get the value, or they see the value, and that's not a problem. You're going to do this temporarily by removing money from the equation. Okay, money aside for a sec. And you're going to get them to reaffirm and double down on why they believe that what you're offering is actually going to help them. So for example, the duffel bag question, you could say, oh yeah, totally understand, man. So money aside for a second though, like if I just handed you a duffel bag with like 10 bands in it, like the full amount for the program, would you actually do it? Of course, they're always going to say yes. Then you're going to dig into why. Okay, well, prospect, why though? What specifically makes you feel like you would actually get to where you want to go? Right? Then they're going to sell themselves and double down on the value and what they're getting out of it, and like it'll actually work for them. Because you having that guidance and structure, what do you feel like that would do for you personally in the long term? Where would that get you to go? Now you've done 2 things here. First, you've eliminated the value objection. They quite literally just told you in their own words themselves that they believe in the program and that it would actually change their life. You're not selling them on anything. They are selling themselves. Second, you brought value back to the front of their mind right before you address the money. That is very, very important, because you don't want to get to the money until after the value and the money has been established. So for the payment plan, this one you need to be very careful with, because sometimes Prospects will literally lie to your face saying, oh yeah, it's just solely about the money. It's a money issue. I got money tied up. I only have cash. I don't have access to this bank account, whatever. Or they just physically can't afford it and you actually have to break it down into payments. But once you for sure know that it's simply like a money logistics issue and they can't afford it or it's too much pressure, whatever, you would say something like, oh, okay, so does the full amount all at once feel like a little heavy? Or if, maybe if there's a way that we could break it up for you, do you think that that would be, more manageable for you and something that would make more sense financially? And almost every single time, if it is a logistics problem, breaking it up is always going to help. Now, I want you to keep in mind, though, that it's very important that you don't use payment plans as a crutch to get the close. Because one, not only will you make less money, but two, the whole business will make less money. And three, in the future, it's going to be harder for you to start collecting more cash because they're so used to crutching on finances or payment plans to actually get paid rather than your skill to close a deal and get paid in full. But they're more likely than not going to say yes if it is logistics, and breaking it up would always help. So now you have to ask where they're at with everything, put together some sort of payment structure, get them to agree on what works within their budget, something's not going to put them under a bridge. But getting that agreement is really crucial. You don't want to just have a loose foothold on the payment plan and everything like that. You really want to confirm that this actually works for them financially, because that way they can't fall back on money later. And sometimes you need to reframe how they think about the price itself. So somebody tells you, oh, that shit's too expensive. Okay, expensive in comparison to what? So if you're talking to the prospect, you would say something like this. So if I told you, prospect, that you had to pay, what, $10,000 for a dinner, that would sound absolutely insane, right? But if somebody told you that they were going to sell you a brand new Ferrari for $10,000, you would think that that's a steal, right? Notice how it's the same number, though, just the value out of what they're paying for is a little bit different. So whenever I'm using this analogy, I always love to say, yeah, so right now you're thinking about the $10,000 dinner, not the Ferrari that you can get for $10,000. You're just giving them an analogy that makes it make sense logically for them in their brain so they can apply that situation towards their current situation. Now, sometimes this is kind of an uncommon one, but you'll get a time objection where people kind of tell you, I just don't have the time right now. Now, majority of the times when somebody says they don't have the time, the first thing that you want to do is the same thing as money. You want to remove it from the equation and reaffirm value. Now, before getting into this, I really want to mention that handling the time objection shouldn't even be a problem or come up in the first place, because this objection should have been pre-handled in the discovery phase, which is really where the sale is actually going to occur. So in order to remove it from the equation and reaffirm the value, you could say something like this. Okay, yeah, for a second, time aside for a sec. If you did have the time, do you genuinely feel this would get you to your goal? You let them answer, and then you say, okay, well, why though? What specifically do you feel would help you out the most? Then the reaffirming of value occurs. They're selling themselves again, very similar to what we were just talking about. Now, in order to work your way towards the close, if this is a genuine objection, I always love using the two types of people reframe every single time, because once the value is reaffirmed, then you present them with a choice, and it's a choice that they want to make. It's not like anything aggressive, but just clearly. So here's what I've noticed. There are really two types of people that I encounter on these calls. There's a person who says, I have a job, I have a family, I have all these responsibilities, and I can't not find the time, whatever it is I'm doing, to learn a new skill, to make more money, to get me out of the situation that I want to get out of. And then there's the second person who says, because I have a family, because I have the job, because I have the responsibilities and all these different things, that is exactly why I need to learn how to make more money to get me out of the situation that I'm currently in. That way I can actually have more time with them in the future and live the life that I actually want to live. Which of those two sounds more like you? Now, you're not assuming anything about them. You're making them make a choice on who they want to be. And they're more likely than not always going to pick the latter. Then they're going to realize what mistake they're making. And then they're going to have that mindset switch. And then they're going to get closed. Now, this one is another really tricky objection. And this is something that should have been handled way earlier on in the call. This should have been pre-handled. And you need to make sure that you pre-handle it before it comes up, because it is very hard to roll if you do hear it at the end of your sales call. So if you know the prospect might have a partner, a girlfriend, or parents involved in the decision, you really need to make sure that it's pre-handled way earlier in the call. So you could say, okay, well, when it comes to making a decision like this, getting into the business model, whatever, something that could genuinely change your life, is that something you need to handle yourself, or is that something that you would need to run by somebody else? Or is this a decision that you're going to make for yourself, for your life? Then from there, they're gonna be like, okay, I need to do it by myself, for myself. Because most people don't want to feel like they can't make their own decisions. So they're gonna say, no, I make my own decisions. But if it comes up anyways, which sometimes, unfortunately, it just happens, same pattern, you always wanna clear the value first. So make sure that they see the value. So you could say something, okay, so if your mom or girlfriend or whoever was sitting right here and she said, honey, this is exactly what we need. You should do this. Would you do it? Do you genuinely feel like it would get you to your goal? Then they're like, oh yeah, I would do 100%. After the value is confirmed, then you can shift the responsibility back to them. So you want to flip it back on them. So, okay, so between me and you, bro, who is going to be the one to actually do the work? Is it going to be you or her? Is she going to be the one learning the skills, getting on the calls and doing all this stuff? Or is that going to be you? I kind of just flipped it there, but you get the point. Obviously, it's going to be them. So whose responsibility is it to really put yourself in the best position to succeed? Would it actually be fair to put the weight of that decision on somebody else who does not have the full context of what we just went through on this call? Really push back, get them to defend it. Then you can hit them with the consequence, cost of inaction. Because what happens if you hand that decision to somebody else and they say no? Where does that leave you? Does that get you to your goals? And this is very important. Once they agree that it is their responsibility solely and what they need to do, not somebody else, anything after the fact is not going to be a logistics objection. It's going to be a fear objection, because if they hit you with it again, it's fear. You immediately know it's a smokescreen. So you're no longer rolling the partner objection. You're now rolling the fear objection. That's how you're going to handle it from this point forward. Now for the belly of the beast, fear objections. This is the majority and honestly the biggest and most common objection. Even if it doesn't sound like it, even if they say something different, majority of the time, if it is a problem, it's always going to come down to fear of something, right? And this is the real reason why they don't buy. Once money and logistics are fully off the table, anything left every single time is always going to be a fear of failure, fear of losing money, not getting that return, whatever it is. And a lot of times people say, oh, I need to think about it. Can you let me sleep on it? Can we schedule another call? I typically don't do these kind of things in one call. I don't like to be impulsive, whatever. I'm not sure if I'm ready. Whatever BS they give you, right? It doesn't matter how they phrase it. It's always the same thing. Because if the value is confirmed, the payment works, logistics isn't a problem. The only thing between them and a yes is just fear. That's it. Now, the agreement statement is very important because it's going to give you the power, right? This is how you're going to convert their fear objection into the one that you actually want to handle. No matter what they tell you, the statement itself is a statement that is so universally true that it simply cannot be disagreed with. So something that I always love saying if I know that it is genuinely fear, like if they say, oh, maybe I need to go think about it for a little bit. Okay, so prospect, yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, I would do the same exact thing if I were in your shoes. But would it be fair to say that the reason why you're wanting to think about it is because you have a little bit of hesitancy around the decision of actually moving forward? They're always going to say yes to that, because then now the ball's in your court. Now it's in your turf. The conversation is now steered towards you pinpointing and handling that fear objection, because they just admitted it, right? Instead of the smokescreen that they just gave you. Or you could give them the certainty version. So if they're really just looking for a guarantee, or they're wanting certainty, they want to be 100% confident in themselves, you could say something like this. Yeah, that makes total sense, man. 100%. Because at the end of the day, what you're really looking for is that certainty, right? Like certainty that this will actually work for you, that you'll actually be able to take care of your people, that you'll actually be able to get to where you want to go. Is that fair? They're always going to say yes to that if it's the certainty that they're looking for, because their original objection may have been, oh, it's too risky. I need to think about it. I've been burned before, whatever BS they're giving you. But you just converted all of it into a singular point, lack of certainty. And now you have an entire arsenal of reframes and all the ammunition that they gave you earlier on the call built specifically for giving them that certainty. Now the reframes are showing them that their current perspective is what got them to their current situation, right? So if they want a different result, they got to see things a little bit differently. So you could say something to prospect, okay, so yeah, can I offer you a quick perspective on that? Because you need to get them to see the other side. They're trying to look over the 50-foot wall, but they can't. So you have to give them a different perspective, a different lens, or maybe some sort of analogy for it to make sense for them to have that confidence to say yes. So for certainty, here's a quick reframe example. So after you get the agreement statement, you can go into your first reframe using our standard 4-step structure that I mentioned earlier. So you would say, yeah, so here's the thing about certainty. Everybody wants it, but nobody can truly have it. No matter who you are, where you're at with everything, it never will happen. And there are no guarantees in life. Think about it this way. If a fast food worker who clocks in every day and gets the same paycheck deposited every 2 weeks, do you think that that's somebody who's chasing certainty and safety? Or is that somebody who's chasing growth? Now I want you to think about an entrepreneur, right? An entrepreneur is obviously somebody that you want to become, right? Okay, yeah, you get that tie down, you get that identity tie down. So somebody who does what 99% of people aren't willing to do, they take the risk, they bet on themselves, they actually build something. Is that someone who waits for certainty, or is that somebody who creates their own? Then they're going to have that tie down of who they want to be, and they're going to associate themselves with taking risks, betting on themselves, building something, right? You're getting that perspective shift, you're breaking that limiting belief. So you can push back a little bit too. You can be like, can you see how making these decisions based on needing certainty first might actually be what kept you to where you're at right now in the first place? They're gonna be like, yeah, I see that. Okay, so what happens if you do keep making decisions like that? And that way for next 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever it may be, where does that leave you? You're gonna be like, oh, I'm in the same spot, whatever they want to tell you. So what decision do you feel that you need to do right now to actually put yourself in that best position to get to that goal? Then you could even throw in like a little bit of identity shifting, so 2.0 version of yourself, which we'll get into in the next segment, and then eventually lead to the close. Now, here's a list of common objections that you're most likely going to hear on sales calls at some point. This is just a quick reference that I wanted to make of the most frequent ones and how you would simply approach each. Obviously, there's a bunch of different methods and reframes and all these little things that you can do. But this is just like a bare bones idea of like what to do about it. So if somebody tells you that they need to think about it, like I mentioned earlier, this is always going to be a smoke screen. This is usually going to come down to fear majority of the time. They're not going to go home, pull out some dumb spreadsheet and logically evaluate the program. They're not going to go ask ChatGPT, hey, what do you think of this? Blah, 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 blah. No, they're not doing that at all. They're just simply scared. And it's your job to find out what they're actually scared about. What do they actually need to think about? So you could just simply agree with them. Yeah, no, I totally respect that, bro. I mean, if I were in your shoes, I would honestly do the exact same thing, right? It just makes sense. But let me set up a follow-up call real quick for you, just to give you some space, all these things. Then once you mention a different call, they're gonna be like, oh, you're literally gonna watch their shoulders drop, all that weight's off their shoulder, be like, oh my God, thank God. And then you're gonna say, okay, so just so I can be prepped for that call, what specifically is it that you need to think through just so I can understand a little bit better? Then they're going to tell you that real objection. Then you're right back into the sale. You're right back into it. Then you kind of creep your way into it, give them that reframe that we literally just talked about, hit them with the identity shift, and boom, they close. Number two, it's too expensive. Usually this one isn't about a number specifically. It's more so about like the perceived value majority of the time. And this isn't a very common one that you'll hear. Usually if somebody tells you it is too expensive, potentially it may be a logistics issue, maybe a fear issue, but like for most of the time, it might be a perceived value problem. So if it is, use that duffel bag question like we were talking about earlier, isolating the value, then you want to work on the payment structure. Or if they say the price is just simply too high, I wasn't expecting it to be that expensive. Okay, expensive in comparison to what? Then you're going to use that $10,000 dinner Ferrari analogy and close the deal. Then if you want another layer of certainty and really want to ensure they're closed, you can make a simple comparison of them staying exactly where they're at for another year, compared to the income that they could potentially be making if they actually started the action learn a skill or whatever it is that they're actually investing into. Really reframing that cost of an action. I need to talk to my partner. This one is more so about pre-handling it before it shows up, because once it does come up, it's very hard to handle, but you'd use the responsibility reframe. So who's doing the work? Who has the context? Who has the perspective? Who has the idea? Who has the belief in themselves? Not the other person, it's that person, right? It's the person on the call. So once they agree to the responsibility is theirs, then any further mention of it is just not them needing to talk to somebody. And they never really need to talk to anybody. It's always fear. If they're not ready to commit, a great analogy that I always love using is the skydiving analogy. So you could say something like this. Imagine you were somebody who wanted to skydive. I can imagine you want to skydive. I mean, it's on my bucket list. Is it on yours? And be like, oh yeah, maybe I want to do it. And then you're like, okay, yes, let's imagine somebody. Like, let's say they're going to skydive. They drive to the airfield, they get on the plane, they go all the way up, and they walk to the open door. They look down, and then they sit back down. They're like, whoa, I don't want to do this. They never jump. They had every single intention. They did every single thing except for the one thing that actually mattered. The prospect is standing at the door right now. This is the analogy how you're going to connect it, right? So you're standing at the door right now. And if you sit back down, you're going to go all the way back down to the life that you just told me that you did not want. Then you can tie in the 2.0 version of yourself with the identity shifting, which again, I'll talk about in a second. Hold your horses. And then you're going to close. If somebody tells you they've been scammed or burned, or maybe they're a little bit skeptical, hesitant. So in a nutshell, this one is really just asking them, okay, obviously you've dated somebody, you have an ex, right? And they're like, okay, with that, you had a bad experience that potentially. Would you let that one bad experience dictate or stop you from looking for your future wife or dating somebody that you actually see a future with? Of course, they're going to say no to that, right? So with the story here, you can use that simple reframe like I just mentioned. Once that makes sense for them logically, you could say, okay, so same exact principle here. One bag program does not mean every single program is a scam. They would not be on this call if they truly believe that. They would just not even be on the call. If you want an extra layer, throw in some social proofing with other clients who are exactly like them that have gotten results, or some sort of guarantee, or like a contract, whatever it may be to seal the deal and get them closed. If somebody tells you they need to do more research, smokescreen. Plain and simple. They're already on the call. They've already done the research. They've looked at all the pre-call resources, whatever it may be, which they were given throughout the sales pipeline. They already know what the offer is. They understand everything about it. They don't need to do more research. They need more courage. They need a little push, So treat this the exact same thing as I need to think about it, because that's really all it is. Just fear. It's not an information problem. And another one, can you give me a guarantee? I hate hearing this, because anybody who looks for a guarantee in life and is really never going to be successful And you need to make them understand that there's never going to be a guarantee in anything that you ever do, especially if it's worth something. That's just kind of how reality works. What you can guarantee them is the tools, the support, the framework, the environment, all these little different things. But if they don't get in the dirt, they don't get their feet wet and put in the work, tools are just tools. You can show somebody to the water, but if they're not going to drink from it, there is literally nothing that you can do. You could literally say that to a prospect. I love using that analogy. The only real guarantee that anybody could actually give themselves is that they actually tried and they gave it everything that they had. Now, there are going to be some times to where you just got to walk away. You could give them so many different reframes. You could run through the entire system, clear the money, logistics, fear, everything like that. You make them genuinely sound stupid for still telling you no, and they're still going to tell you no. At that point, just end the call. You don't have to be pissed off. You don't have to crash out. You don't have to be defeated. It just happens. Just respectfully in the call, because here's the reality of it. Some people, even if 4 reframes didn't move them, you're probably going to need at least like another hour to grind out maybe some sort of small payment plan or like a deposit of somebody who doesn't even want to fully be there because they're too scared. You don't want to work with somebody who's not going to be committed because they're not going to get results, and odds are they're not going to get the results that they want. So you can just hit them with the basic apology. You know what, man? I want to be real with you. I feel like I let you down today because I didn't know this would have been the right move for you based on everything that you kind of told me. But I wasn't able to get you past the fear, and I know that's going to cost you, and I genuinely apologize for that. And if anything changes down the road, I'm here for you, man. So the last one of the call is what they're going to remember the most every single time. If you leave it on a genuine human note like that, one of 2 things is going to happen. First, the door stays open. They could potentially come back. I've had multiple instances where I've given somebody a game plan, especially if they're unqualified, to go do certain things. And they would literally come back to me, hey, I got the job, I got the money, I'm ready to go. And secondly, you leave their emotional state in a place where your words keep echoing. They're going to remember that. It's going to loop in their head. And the apology is going to land harder than any other reframe would have ever had if you waste another hour trying to do that BS. But always remember that you're better off going to somebody else who is more qualified, more motivated, and isn't going to take 10 bajillion reframes to close on the call. So for quick reference, this is the full objection handling system at a glance. The only thing that we didn't get into was identity shifting. And this is honestly my favorite part. So I wanted to go really in depth with it because this is how I've been able to close it over 50, 60% just using these identity shifts, especially with the way the market is right now. It's very important that you listen to the next part. So stay tuned. All right. So now we're going to be covering identity shifting. And there's a very specific reason why this has its own entire section, because people aren't going to be sold on the flashy images anymore. People aren't going to be looking at all this money and whatnot and say, wow, I want to buy this. No, they're going to look at the transformation and the identity that they become. So you're selling them on their new identity to get them to their goals. And that's why this section is very important. So we're going to get all into the specifics here in a sec. You're not going to sell the outcome. You're not going to sell like how much money that they're going to make. And one of the biggest problems that nobody really talks about is how you could do literally everything right on a sales call. You could have the script down perfectly. You have complete frame over the call in the prospect. You build the pain, urgency, future pace, literally everything done properly. And the prospect is still going to tell you that they need to think about it. And odds are, if you hop off the call, you're never speaking to them again. And you're kind of confused, or if you were closing, you'd be kind of confused. You're like, I did everything right. What do you mean? What do you mean this isn't working? You showed them exactly what the outcome would be. You've showed them that other people just like them have also achieved the same outcome. You've handled their objections, honestly, flawlessly. So what happened? Well, what happened is that the prospect looked at the outcome and thought, okay, that's not for me. I don't think that I can do it. Maybe other people can do that, but not for me. I'm not that kind of person. I don't believe in myself. I don't think that I'm going to become successful. And that right there is the number one problem with selling outcomes, because you can show somebody the most incredible transformation. You got some guy who's literally homeless that became a millionaire in 6 months. But if they don't see themselves doing it, then there's literally nothing that you can do. They're never going to end up buying. It doesn't matter how good your proof is or what kind of guarantee that you're offering or testimonials. If they look at the finish line, they think to themselves, oh, maybe somebody else can do this, but it's not for me. The sale is honestly dead before you even get to the pitch part of the close. And this is why identity shifting exists and why it is so important, because a lot of people will do everything correctly on the sales call, but they don't get the prospect to think from the version of themselves or the shoes of the version of themselves who is capable of seeing that success. Because at the end of the day, the real sale is not going to be about selling the vacation directly to them and showing them the outcomes and all the pretty little things that they'll get out of all this. It's more about them believing in themselves, who they believe that they are to attain that. Because at the end of the day, that's the foundation of success. It's more so not about what you accomplish and how much money that you make, but more about the person that you become who is capable of getting that success. And the reason why identity runs everything, especially in today's market within the info space and the high ticket sales space, There's a general principle in the psychology of humans that says the strongest force in the human mind is the drive to act in accordance with who we believe that we are. Meaning not who we want to be, not who other people are telling us that they are, or that what we should be. It's who we believe ourselves to be at our true core, deep down. Think about it for a second. Somebody who genuinely believes that they're an honest person are not going to go steal from a store tomorrow. They're not going to go rob a bank. They're not going to be a bad person because it doesn't matter what the circumstances are. That's not who they are inside, deep down, as a person and an identity. But on the flip side, you could have somebody who believes that they're a failure. They're always talking trash. Oh, you're so bad at this. You're so bad at that. And it's natural to do that. But somebody who has internalized that negativity, saying that they're not good enough, are not even going to be able to bet on themselves. They're not going to be able to take a risk if the opportunity comes up. And that truly is what holds so many people back in the space from actually becoming successful, is that they believe that they will not succeed and they never end up taking the risk and they stay in the same spot every year. But here's where it gets really, really interesting for sales. Let's say a prospect walks in the call, right? They believe that they are the type of person who, plays it safe, who waits for the right time or, the perfect opportunity. They don't really like taking risks. No amount of outcome selling or the vacation or the reward is going to override that whatsoever. They're going to agree that the program looks great. They see the value. They're going to get everything out of it. They see how it could help all these other people that you were talking about, but they're still going to say no to you because buying the product or the program or whatever it is that's being sold is not matching who they believe that they are. And in order to get around this problem and people not closing even though you did everything right, is to understand the 3 layers of the brain that influence identity. Now, the first one is logical, the second one is emotional, and the third one is identity. With logical, this is the surface level, right? This is just governing thoughts, reasoning, and just basic analysis, data analysis. And selling at this level is the outcome, the features, the proof. It's easy to understand, but it's also very easy to dismiss because it's very surface level. Next is emotional. So this is where you're going to be digging into the feelings, the desires, the pain that they have, which is going to look something like talking about their goals, their fears that they may have, future pacing, whether it be positive or negative. It's very powerful, but it's not deep enough. It's still a little bit on the surface level for a lot of prospects, which then leads us to identity, which is the deepest level of the layer within the brain, which kind of governs over self-concept, instincts, who they truly believe that they are. And whenever you're selling at this level of identity, it's more so about the person that they need to become, the most persuasive level. And it basically changes everything above it, like the logical and the emotional, influencing their decision making. Because I have seen a lot of people, and I have seen a lot of people come into this space, start high ticket sales, start closing, and they'll never really reach that deepest level of identity. They'll stay at the first 2 levels. They'll sell the outcomes, the vacation, really play with their emotions. And it works to a degree, it'll get some closes. But if you want to be closing at 50, 60, 70, maybe even like 80 or 90%, you really have to go to that 3rd level because that is really what's going to move the needle for a lot of tough prospects. You're going to have to sell the identity. It's almost a requirement because when somebody's identity shifts, their thoughts, their beliefs, their actions, and all of the outcomes are going to realign automatically with the version of themselves that they want to be. So you don't have to convince them. Of each little thing individually. That's the identity. The identity is what's going to do all that work to get them to buy. Now, there are always 2 beliefs that every single prospect is going to need before they ever buy something. So on every single sales call, they're going to need 2 beliefs instilled within them. They need to believe in themselves and they need to believe in you as well. If both of these are in place, then you're going to close the deal. But if one's missing, like you got the belief in themselves, but they don't believe in you, it's not going to close. You have to have both. And whenever you do have both, the prospect is no longer going to decide whether or not they actually want to buy the program. It doesn't even matter, frankly, what program they're buying. They're deciding on whether or not they want to step into that new version of themselves, regardless of the program, regardless of you, and more about themselves. And that decision is significantly more powerful than any price tag. Now, some people are going to be oblivious to the fact that there isn't a problem, that they don't have a problem, that where they are is perfectly fine. And that is the biggest thing on why they have been stuck. That's why they're still stuck. That's why they're on this call. So you need to make them realize who they are right now versus who they want to be, selling the identity gap. So every single prospect who gets on a call has 2 versions of themselves, right? The version of themselves where they're stuck at the job, they haven't made a change. They haven't really been helping out their family. They're staying the same person. They're staying one day. And then there's the version of who they want to be. So the one who's actually getting to that success that they want, those goals that they had set for themselves, that identity is actually getting there. They're making the money. They took the risk. and they actually built something. The gap between those two people is literally where the sale is going to live, especially if you've done everything in your power up until this point and they're still not closing. The only thing that really is going to get them to make the decision is the identity shift. So it's your job to make that gap feel so clear, vivid, emotionally charged that the pain of staying in the same spot is greater than the pain of them actually taking the risk and rewiring their belief system and identity to get to where they want to be. And the only way to cross either side is through that decision that they're going to have to make on this call. And in order to build that gap, if there really isn't one, the first thing you need to do is paint the desired reality. So go above and beyond with the outcomes. Don't just ask what they want to achieve. Ask what their why is. Like, why do they want to be successful? Who do they need to become to achieve it? What does life look like as that person? How do they carry themselves? What's different? So you could say something specific like, what would be different about you as a person if you actually hit that goal? Or what would you need to become to make that happen? Or how would you feel waking up every single day as the person who actually did this, right? Getting that emotional charge, getting that vivid visualization of them operating as that identity or that version of themselves. Then you want to get to the root desire. So dig, probe. The first answer is always going to be surface level. Underneath that, I want to make a little bit more money is something much deeper. Maybe like, I don't want to be a failure. I want to prove to myself that I can actually do something. I want to prove to my parents that I can become successful instead of being all talk and living under the roof, being a slob or whatever it is, maybe they're terrified of being average as well. Maybe they have some sort of fear. And these are the identity statements that you really need to bring out, and that is exactly what you're looking for. Then you want to create the contrast. So now you want to put these two people side by side. So you have them as a person, their current identity versus the 2.0 version of themselves that they want to be. So the person they want to become versus the person that they are right now. How do they feel in comparison? You want to let them verbalize it. You don't want to just say it. You don't want to assume or say, oh, well, yeah, this version of you, he's obviously, where you want to be and things like that. No, you want them to say it. So you could say, oh, and how do you feel right now compared to that version of yourself, that version of yourself that hits XYZ goal? And then they're going to tell you things like, oh, I feel stuck. I feel like I'm not, really living up to where I want to be potential wise, or I'm feeling like I'm falling behind. All these kids my age are making significant amount of money online and I'm doing nothing. Then they're going to understand that gap. Then finally, you want to make the sale about the identity shift. So you're going to reframe the entire conversation because it's not about the program anymore. It's more so about being that person that they just described you, because that is truly what's going to get them to where they want to be. So you could say something along the lines of, so what we're really talking about here isn't just X outcome. We're actually talking about becoming the person or the type of person who is capable of outcome. That is what actually matters. Does that make sense? Then they're gonna be like, yes, because now they're justifying it logically. And now the sale is gonna be irresistible because humans are wired to chase that identity and that belief system instead of the actual outcome, especially nowadays, because the outcome, they know it's there, but are they themselves actually gonna get there? That's the real question. Because you don't really wanna make more money. Deep down, you really don't. You want to become the type of person who makes more money because intrinsically that is going to get you the money instead of just simply wanting it. Same thing with wanting to be in shape. You don't want to get in shape. You want to be the type of person who is in shape because those inputs, those actions that person does is what's going to get that outcome. Instead of selling the outcome, you sell them on themselves and the transformation to get the outcome, if that makes sense. And not only do you want to do this towards the end of the call when you're rolling objections, but you really need to be planting these identity seeds throughout the entire call. It's not just at the end. So you can do that by implementing small, little, casual, almost invisible moments where you label the prospect with an identity that serves them who they want to be, and more importantly, is going to get you closer to the sale. So the way that you can do that is by having 3 core identities that you want to reinforce on every single call that you take, regardless of what offer it is or where you're at in the actual call. So first things first, intelligent. You want to establish the intelligent identity because they need to trust their own judgment. If they don't trust themselves, if they don't believe in themselves, nothing is ever going to happen. They're not going to make a buying decision. If they feel dumb, they're not even going to trust themselves. And if they can't trust themselves, then you're really cooked. So if you want to see it in a specific way, you could say, okay, yeah, I mean, that's really smart of you. That's a great way to look at it. So you're kind of glazing them a little bit. You're giving them that intelligence. You're giving them that confidence subtly, not too much, but just enough to where they actually believe that they can make shit happen. Then you want to incorporate boldness. So this matters a lot because buying is bold. It's a risk. It's something that's hard that a lot of people can't do. So if they see themselves as someone who plays it safe, they're never really going to take that leap and you're going to waste your time. So how you're seating this one, yeah, that takes guts, man. Most people would not even have done that, in all honesty, right? So maybe giving them a little bit more confidence, but more of a bold way rather than an intelligent way. or courageous, for example. So they have to be courageous because they're spending thousands of dollars on some sort of product or service or, whatever it may be. And that requires courage, a lot of it. And you want to reinforce that they are the type of person who acts despite fear being present or despite there being a little bit of tension or anxiety or, whatever it may be that's potentially holding them back. This one is a little bit similar to being bold, but you need both boldness and courageousness for them to actually make that buying decision. Now, these aren't going to be moments that are highlights that you really need to focus on. They're more small, little intricate things that are way below the surface level that they don't even understand. It's just kind of something that you throw their way, and then psychologically it does something to them. You're essentially painting the picture of who they are, and by the end of the call, they basically already internalized it and shifted their identity. So that way, whenever you get to the end of the call, they're not going to continuously throw you in the I need to think about it loop. They're already sold on the identity that they want and who they need to be, and essentially have already morphed into that person because they know that they need to make the proper decision to align with that identity to get them to their goals. That's why identity selling is so powerful. Now, if you want to be a little bit more planned and more deliberate with how you're approaching identity shifting, you can use a specific phrase like this one. And you're doing two things by doing this. You're giving them an identity to live up to, and you're contrasting it against the type of person that they don't want to be. Now they're going to feel compelled, no matter what, to stay aligned with the positive label because the alternative is not what they want. That other person, the whole reason why are they on the call, and they don't want to be that person, right? It's more so just about getting them over the fear factor and flipping their belief system and getting them to understand that, hey, if I want to get to this point or make this amount of money or live that lifestyle, I have to act in accordance with the person that I need to become, the identity that I need to have. And another important but subtle one is context specific. So reinforcing situational ones, like if they're a parent, reinforce the fact that they're a great father, a great mother, or if they run a business, great employer, great leader, great entrepreneur, or if they're taking care of somebody, selfless, responsible, character traits that they want to be based on their current situation. So this is more so tailored towards their actual life. And whenever you do that, they feel heard. It feels more personal. It feels more tailored. And having these little context specific things makes the prospect feel heard. It makes them feel like you understand them, and it makes them feel way more inclined to actually do something about it because it's tailored towards them. Now, I know we just covered a lot of important information, but by far the most powerful application of selling somebody's identity is attaching their identity to a future pace, whether it be a positive or a negative, because both the positive future that they want and the negative future that they're trying to avoid are exactly where the identity shifting becomes the most influential tool on a sales call by far. So for the positive side of things, whenever you're doing the future pacing like we previously talked about during the sales call, after you get them to describe what they really want out of life and their goals, then you're going to add on a question that's going to change everything for them. You're going to say something like, okay, and who do you feel like that would make you as a person? Like being the one who actually took the shot, bet on yourself, and got to where you wanted to be. And, now you're able to achieve that specific vision. Who does that make you, right? Now you're labeling them with some sort of identity like a role model or a provider or somebody who actually followed through or father based on the context that we were just talking about. And for the negative side, it's the exact opposite. So it's going to get a little bit heavier. So whenever you're doing negative future pacing, your emotions are very low. You're really trying to exaggerate and exasperate the negatives and the pain of inaction or not moving the needle. And labeling like that, it's a little touch and go. So you need to word it very carefully. So you could say something like, and I don't want to say this to you because I genuinely want the best for you, but who do you think that would make you as a person? Like knowing 5 years from now that you had this opportunity, you had the opportunity to make the change, you could have changed something, but you really didn't. And because of that, then you mentioned their specific negative consequence. Who does that make you? Right? Then they're really going to feel that one. They're going to say, oh, I'm a failure, I'm a bad father, all these negative traits that they don't want to identify with, no matter the cost. Because being a failure is infinitely more painful than spending a few $1,000s to take a risk to get them to where they want to be. And worst case scenario, they just don't even get anything out of it because they can at least say that they tried. Now, a problem that I have noticed with some people in this space is that whenever you're talking about identity, sometimes you can make it feel a little bit forced or making it feel a little bit awkward. Now, if you just start randomly asking somebody who you are as a person in the middle of a sales call, it's going to feel weird, no doubt. The key is implementing all these little tactics and specific word tracks about identity smoothly into the call. The key is transition, having that natural transition. That's what's really going to make the prospect feel like it's normal. And it's just like a deeper rooted conversation or a question they're asking and not just trying to manipulate them by saying some sort of script. So you can do that with the discovery bridge. So after you built like a little bit of rapport with the prospect and understanding their pain. So in the initial part of the call, you could transition like this. You could say, can I make a suggestion real quick? You could have the best plan in the world, in all honesty, the best strategy, the best tools, whatever it may be. But if you don't have the right mentality to actually use them, what kind of results are you going to get? And they're obviously going to agree with you, be like, oh, none, no results, not good ones. Exactly. So getting you to that goal that you were telling me about is yes, about having the right skills, but more importantly, it's about becoming the right person. Wouldn't you say so? You don't want to, you don't want to assert or assume. You want them to agree with you. That's why you always ask that open-ended question, right? Would you agree? What kind of results are you going to get, right? So you're giving them the ball instead of just like putting things on them, pressuring them, assuming things, because that's what loses the sale, and that's what comes off as very salesy and manipulative, if you catch my drift. Because you're essentially asking for permission, and you're getting that permission to go deeper because you frame the conversation as being about who they need to become and not what they need to do, not assuming or telling them to do something. And from here, the identity questions are just going to flow naturally. Now, there's also another part of the call where you can do this, and that's the objection handling section. So if you do get to the call and you do need to identity shift them because that reframe of I need to think about it isn't working and they're giving you some resistance, you need to redirect the entire conversation away from the program, away from the money, away from all of that, and more so towards the person that they need to become. So you could say something along the lines of, yeah, bro, I totally understand that taking this step feels a little scary. But right now, we're not really deciding whether or not to do the program. We're deciding what kind of person, business owner, father, whatever they are, you are going to be. And I think that you already know the answer to that, right? So you're not, again, you need to be very careful with your words because you don't want to assume something about them. You don't want to be aggressive. You want them to agree and justify it themselves. Because you just took the conversation from should I spend this money to who do I want to be? And you want them to decide that because that's a completely different decision. That's on them at the end of the day. And it's going to be the one that they're much more likely going to say yes to because it's about them themselves. It's not about money or a program. It's about who they want to be. Now, I know that was kind of a lot to take in, so I really want to make sure that you can actually repeat this, making it repeatable in every single call that you use, because the people who are really good at identity shifting, they don't kind of just wing it and give some basic 2.0 version of yourself reframe on the call. They have a system. They know the ICP. They know, which identities this specific person needs. And we were talking about context earlier. They implement that very well. And they have some sort of pre-built language for each specific one. So if you want to build yours, first off, you need to understand your avatar or your client avatar or your ICP, your ideal client profile. Every single offer is going to have very, very similar prospects. So like you're working for an AI agency that's selling to blue collar businesses. You're always going to have a blue collar type of worker, an A type or, blue collar business worker that's showing up to the call repeatedly. Or just generally speaking, maybe it's the person who wants to stop working the 9 to 5. Maybe it's the business owner who wants to scale. Maybe it's a college student who doesn't want to go work in a cubicle for the rest of his life. So you need to make sure to write out the 3 to 5 most common ICPs that you actually sell to, because then you're going to be aware of who you're actually selling to on top of the notes that you're receiving from your setter. So that way you're not going in blind and you already know how to pre-handle and identity shift this person because you understand the identity or the avatar that they already are. So for step 2, really think back to context. Again, you want to identify the identity. I know that sounds weird, but for each specific avatar. So maybe like the 9 to 5 worker is running from being average, or the parents running from being absent in their kid's childhood, or they want to be a provider, whatever it may be. Get very, very specific with your ICP. And then you want to pre-build your language. So writing out your little seeds like the intelligent, oh, that's really smart of you. Or, using the kudos formula. So future identity questions, positive and negative, whatever it may be, have them already before you ever get on the call. Because then you're not going to be scrambling and looking for the perfect word track to say and having to really think on your toes. You already understand what you need to do and how to do it before they're even on the call. But once you have the system implemented, it's going to drastically improve incrementally every single month. Like after you're reviewing your calls, you're finding out which objections you're encountering the most, what identity labels are really converting and getting them to close. You're really going to notice what avatars respond to which kind of framing. You're going to refine, you're going to adjust, you're going to tweak. It's going to get like 10% better each month. Your close rate's going to go up and you're going to really start making a lot more money simply because you have a repeatable pattern on how to identity shift prospects on your sales calls. I hope this training was helpful. It took a long ass time to record. High ticket sales genuinely changed my entire life, and I wanted to change yours too. Because before I got into it, I was so overwhelmed with just the sheer amount of business models and different ways of making money online, and I just didn't really have an idea of what I wanted to do. But remember, the world does not make millionaires by some trendy business model. Real wealth is always going to be acquired by learning and developing high value skills that you can leverage for the rest of your life. I'm going to leave a link down in the description where you can apply to join my community, where we have daily opportunities that you can apply to privately through our community that you can actually sell for. A fully tailored program with a bunch of resources that go way more into depth than anything that I covered in this video, and weekly training sessions, whether they be group and or one-on-ones with me directly. So thank you guys for watching this video. Best of luck. Peace. Oh, there you are. Dude, my cat was hiding under my fucking desk. Hey there, Binker. What you doing? You want to say hi to the camera? Whee!